tonight is the reorg. Mr. Soley is not going to be here tonight.
Yeah.
Right here.
Oh, he's here. Oh, I got a word that he wasn't here tonight. Okay. Very
Had to
good.
come in self-defense lest I be secretary for life.
Okay. Okay. You have a listing of the committees, but the first is the officers of the board. The first position is chairman, the chairperson at this point. Let me just say, I would like to continue as the chair for another year. I would like to continue to serve for one more year. I've served a year. I'd like to serve one more year. So with that, I will accept nominations for the chair.
I nominate John Stempeck.
Is that seconded?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other nominations? Okay. No? I'm sorry that the board doesn't have any confidence in me to keep going for another year. But, any further nominations? Do I have a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
All right, is that
Second.
seconded? Been moved and seconded to close nominations. All those in favor of closing nominations, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? One opposed. The nomination is for John Stempeck to be the chair. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? So, Mr. Stempeck, you are now sitting in this chair.
Why don't we just,
Swap chairs. You just want to move on?
we can just move, why don't we just move the things,
Okay.
so we don't already have
Okay.
to swap chairs.
All right. Okay.
So the other items of
John, you
reorganization.
got two name tags and
Oh.
without one office.
Yes, here we go.
Mhm.
So the other items within the reorganization include the reorganization of the committees and
Officers.
vice chair,
Vice
right, because
chair
we
and
don't have a
secretary.
vice chair, so we should perhaps
Mhm.
nominate a vice chair. Open nominations.
Nominate Phil Lucino.
Second?
Any discussion?
Move that nominations close.
Second. All in favor?
Look, closing nominations. All in
Close-
favor of closing
All in
nominations?
favor, closing nominations?
I'll help you, John.
Thank you, I do need that help, thank you.
Okay.
Parliamentary procedure is not my strong suit.
Okay. Okay.
So, no, we're ready to
Yeah,
vote?
ready to vote? You need to
Yeah.
vote on the closing nominations.
Okay, everyone who's voting, please raise your right hand.
Mhm. Okay,
Okay,
and then vote on the vice chair.
and so we'd like to vote on the acceptance of the vice chair, being Phil Gino. Okay, so in the past, how have you walked through the committees?
Well,
Has
the
it
thing
been
we've done
through-
with the committees is, first off, you got to decide what you want to do with the secretary. We have rotated that among all of us in the past.
Right.
We have rotated that among all of us. I don't know if we want to continue to rotate it among all of us, so each of us takes a shot at it.
I think that's a fair and good
Yeah.
thing to do.
Okay? Or whether you want to actually have somebody who would be appointed permanently.
I think the rotation would probably be a good
Yeah.
thing to do.
Okay. So,
Rotation for which now?
Secretary?
secretary for each meeting. Okay. All right.
So the secretary would basically approve the minutes of the meetings.
Mhm.
I would like to nominate that David.
Well, you just have to say that, that there'll be a rotation.
Well, okay, there would be a rotation.
There'll
We
be a
choose?
rotation, and in each meeting, one member will be volunteered. Okay? All right. And monthly, it'll be, yeah, monthly rotation.
That's what we've done in the past,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Monthly rotation.
All right, very good. You should just go through the committees.
Okay, let's go through the committees. Let's start with the top of the page, the Audit Committee, including Town of Reading audit.
Mhm.
In the past, this was former Commissioner West and Robert Soley. Do I have
Well, usually we just volunteer. I mean,
volunteers?
I can serve on the audit committee. I mean, that's, and Bob wants to continue, okay?
I think you're very good at that
I
committee,
would
given
agree with
your
that.
professional
I would agree with
background.
that. I would agree with
Okay.
that. The search committee's next.
Okay. For the General Manager Search Committee,
Mhm.
again, Commissioner West is no longer with us, so I would like to nominate, I would like to also serve on that committee.
Right.
In terms of search for a general manager.
Right, I'd like to continue on that committee, too.
Okay.
I would say that the new board chair should be the chair of that committee.
I would chair that committee.
Okay.
That one meets more frequently. That's a more
Well, that-
intensive.
Especially now,
assignment.
yes,
Especially now.
Right.
as we're going through this.
Right, but the little committee that will disappear hopefully in the next 2 months.
Correct.
All right,
Public Relations Committee, not to exceed 1 year.
yes. I think Mr. Talbot would be an excellent choice for that.
Perfect choice,
A
absolutely.
perfect choice for that.
Competency.
A perfect choice for that.
Excellent. In terms of accounts payable, we have a rotation, and we can certainly go through the individuals that we have, with the addition, of course, of a new individual to be assigned to the board. I suggested, in just a rotation, perhaps that David Talbot would do April, or the
Yep.
remainder of April. That Mr. Pacino would do June. I would do May, and then hopefully by that time we'll have a new individual. On Bob. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to forget you, Bob. So you would you choose July?
April, May, how about June?
June was Commissioner Pacino.
Okay.
Yep. It doesn't make any difference what months I am.
Okay. And then we've got the assignments for the payroll, which is a 4-month rotation. I'm just coming off of that, actually, for the April through March. So I would like to make the suggestion that Commissioner Pacino do April through July,
Fine.
followed by Mr. Talbot, followed by Mr. Soley, and then followed by myself. And those are 4-month rotations. Is that it?
That's it.
Mr. Chairman, already tonight we see how we are lacking some committees. I move that we reinstitute, that we accept the committee assignments, and that we reinstitute the Budget Committee, the General Manager Committee, and the Power and Rate Committee, with the assignments to be made at the next board meeting.
Discussion? We need a second for your motion, correct?
Yeah.
I'll second the motion. I just would like to know more about what the rationale is.
Well, tonight, because it was a joint meeting and we had to get all the stuff together, as you see, we started out quite late. And in the past, what was done, I think, was really quite successful. We would have a budget committee, members would attend the CAB. Then the budget committee would make the presentation to the board. Likewise, general manager committee would go through the ratings and things like that and make a recommendation to the board. Power and rate can be fairly technical, can be fairly long-winded committee meetings that maybe not everybody wants to go to. And in some cases, well, like tonight, we almost didn't have a quorum. I understand Mr. Talbot was possibly on travel, and I had a bug earlier today. So I think these committees had served us well for many years, and I think it'd be a good idea to reinstitute them.
Is that, then, can you put that into a form of a motion, or is that what you?
Yeah, reinstitute
Does
the
that answer your
budget
question?
committee.
It does, I mean, being so new, it's hard to know what the rationale
You
was
wanna-
for getting rid of them, and,
Should we hold off on this until the the April meeting?
I mean,
think
since you're
maybe
suggesting that
do more
we could-
thought on it.
Would that be acceptable to you?
Yeah,
that would help,
Okay.
at least for
Yeah,
me,
can in
to
the
learn more.
meantime, the department maybe dig up, what the committees do and get it out to us, so everybody has an understanding?
Yeah, it's in policy 19.
Yeah.
It is,
We dig
okay,
out the
good.
policy.
Great. We'll discuss
Okay.
this at the next meeting.
then I move that the board approves the committee assignments.
Second.
Everyone in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. So moved. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah. Second.
Okay, so that's the end of the,
You're gonna need to take a vote. Take a
oh,
vote.
take a vote, okay? Vote for everyone, would raise their right hand for
Raise your right hand.
Adjourning.
Yep.
adjourning. I'm trying to be smoother with this the next time. Thank you. So I think we're ready to begin.
Yeah.
It now being 7:11, I'm going to call the CAB into order. This is our meeting. I would like to start off with having Kevin Sullivan, the interim general manager, introduce the different department personnel here tonight before we get into the budget deliberation. One thing I would like to ask, the same thing I asked last week, that all electronic devices do not sound during the meeting, either be turned off or put on silent for the remainder of conducting this meeting, so that there be no interference. Thank you. Mr. Sullivan?
Tonight, we're here to present the FY14 capital budget. It's at $5.9 million, which is approximately 7% below the FY13 budget of $6.4 million. Tonight, you'll see overhead upgrades and reconductoring, underground upgrades, station upgrades, changes to the physical plant here at the Ash Street campus, and also changes to MIS regarding hardware and software. With that, there are 4 managers in the department that the 2 boards are not very familiar with. As I call your name, would you please raise your hand? Mark Giovanni, MIS manager. Peter Price, chief engineer. Tom O'Connor, general line foreman. And Nick DeLeva, technical services manager. Those 4 individuals will be presenting much of what's in this book.
Okay.
What I'd like to do, Mr. Chair, if I could, is go out of order and do the rear of the book. There's 2 or 3 items. I'd like to have Mark Giovanni start off.
Okay, which number are we going to start off with?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We need
Sure.
to call.
The chairman, right, yeah.
There's a problem going
Sorry.
on here. You've got a quorum of the municipal
we need
lake,
to call.
by the way,
We need
Fred
to
Van
call.
Magnus, I am a
We need to
ratepayer
call
in
the
Reading.
meeting. You need to
Okay.
call the meeting to order here.
This board adjourned,
Right.
and now you're having a meeting, and you've got a quorum of people here, and you're not in session.
So we need to call it back.
We need to call
We
in
need to
session.
call
Thank you
you.
very much
Call
for
it in
pointing that out.
session.
And I'd also like to ask, if you're going to have any public comment, you didn't have any public comment in your original meeting. Is there going to be an opportunity for public comment during this meeting, or is it going to be
At the end, schedule.
At the end,
After
yes,
the budget
after the budget
presentation.
presentation, yes, absolutely. So I'd like to call the regular session of the meeting to order, the RMLD.
By way of explanation, the CAB will conduct its second half of the operating budget, the capital budget, tonight. At the conclusion of that, there'll be a motion made to be passed on to the Board of Light Commissioners for the bottom line, if that is agreed upon by the CAB. At that point, we will conclude our portion of the meeting, of which there will be no public input. It will be turned back over to the Board of Light Commissioners for their agenda on their portion of the budget that they wish to present tonight under their agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Again, Mr. Sullivan, if you would start, please, and tell us the number that we're gonna start on.
Mr. Chairman, can I just have a quick question on, why would you not have public input if somebody wanted to weigh in?
Not during budgets, Mr. Talbot, we do not do it during budgets.
I'm just-
I believe Mr. Van Magnus is referring to what's coming up under your agenda, sir.
I don't know what he's referring to. I'm asking, I mean, it's a public meeting.
You're
Members
making
of the
reference to,
Here.
My comment was not relative to the CAB, it was relative to the municipal light
Yep.
board.
I understood
Although
that.
Since I served on the CAB, and I don't ever recall having a public meeting where public comment was specifically excluded, if there was any. I mean, that certainly takes away the reason of having a public meeting. But that's obviously at the will of the chair.
I don't know procedure, the spirit of a public meeting is a public meeting, and if there's a person with expertise in the room who has something to add, my feeling would be, but it's your meeting, I'm the new guy.
Mr. Sullivan, can we proceed now, please?
And what number are we going to start on?
Project 27. Mark, if
Thank
you
you.
please come up front and discuss 27.
Do you have a page? Yeah, see, you got the tabs there.
Yeah.
Shit, that's pretty nice.
You wanna look on?
I don't know, I might have to.
That's fine.
I can't. Thank you.
No problem. Excuse me. Mine's pretty much the same every year. There's usually two, it's broken down to two items, hardware and software. And if you would see item 27, item A, this is an item that's always in the budget. We just refer to it as general hardware purchases. It's about the same amount every year. This could include, but not be limited to, monitors, printers, miscellaneous things that come up. You can't always anticipate everything. We put aside, X amount, and this year it's 40,000 plus internal labor. We usually don't approach that amount, but we leave a little wiggle room in case another department requests something hardware related that we don't expect. Item B is, and not to get too deep into this, we've created a lot of virtual machines. We virtualized a lot of servers, a lot of different computers here, and we create what's called a cluster where they kind of operate independently yet all together, if that makes any sense. It's for redundancy, it's for load balancing, it's for speed, for a lot of things. We created a complete cluster at 230 Ash, and we want to do the exact same thing, a replica of it, at the North Reading substation, again for redundancy, disaster recovery, kind of all of the above. It's the way to go. It's kind of the way systems have evolved lately. So we plan to do that in fiscal year 14. Again, shouldn't be a big deal. We've done it here once. It's really going to be literally a duplicate of what we've done here. It's tried, it's true, we know it works. We know it's something you can depend on. Item C is we've had digital phones since I've been here. It's been over 15 years. We're going to finally convert to what they call voice over IP. Fancy name for your phones are connected with Ethernet cables via Ethernet. The advantages are we don't have to buy digital phones because they're getting old. To replace them, they're expensive. Probably not worth replacing digital. Voice over IP, a lot of advantages. Mostly you're using your data communications over one protocol that we already use. We have our own fiber optic ring, which would be connected to, obviously internal, it would be connected to the existing internal network. It also gives you the ability to go to a unified type messaging system, voice, data, video if you choose, where people's email inbox becomes their messaging inbox for everything. The phone system upstairs, the PBX, has been converted to handle this. This would entail, really it's the phones. The phones are expensive. They're about $400 a piece. So most of this money would go towards replacing the phones and installing the software to manage it. But again, it's the way to go. I've been in this field for almost 30 years, and things progress. This is the way to go. Item D is kind of along with some of this other stuff, we've already got Ethernet connections out at the substations via the fiber. We need to pull some more strands through to expand that, again, to accommodate cameras, voice, and data. Not a major thing. We've already terminated at most of these places. We're just going to be, with the help of Peter and his group, just pulling some more fiber through to give us greater bandwidth. But it's stuff and equipment that we already own. They had the foresight here years and years ago to create a fiber ring, and for a while it was underutilized, but it was a smart thing to do, and now we're seeing the benefits of that these years later. That's pretty much it on the hardware side. Again, these are relatively simple. If anybody has any questions, just feel free to ask. 28 is
So,
I got a question.
Sure, yeah.
Is this going to convert all the phones throughout the
All the phones.
RMLD?
You can do them some at a time. You can still have some digital and IP phones, which is a nice way to do it. So we'll convert them over time, but they'll all be done.
Do you have any POTS lines in case there's any failure for those?
We do in the control center. We call it the bat phone, where there's a
Yeah.
copper. We have a couple of those where it's limited who we give the number to, but you'll always be able to get through via that. It's a good question, actually. Yep.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, so what is the first of all, what is the security protections that you have? I mean, we read a lot about how SCADA systems and industrial control systems are vulnerable. And I'm sure you're all over
Boy,
it.
it's probably not for this meeting, but I'm free to talk about things. And we have a lot of things in place. We have all types of internal perimeter security, knock on veneer, I guess. We've never had any type of malware or virus in here in the time I've been here. So not to say it can't happen. It happens to the biggies, but we feel we've got a good system in place, several systems in place that comprise the security.
And what is I'm just curious what the procurement process is for this. Does this go out to bid as a matter of routine?
The phone system part would go out to bid, absolutely, yeah.
Anything else? Okay, Mark, wanna,
28 is,
Can
oh, sure.
I'm sorry.
The bid limit is like 30K, is that right?
25.
The threshold is 25 for the bottom part, between $25,000 and $100,000 goes out to bid,
Goes out to bid by 30B.
by 30 bid.
And again, I tell everybody every year, if you ever want to see what we have come in during the week, or if you have time, we'll show you. We've got some pretty good stuff in place here. We feel it's pretty good. 28 is the software side. Some of this is related to the hardware side, some of it isn't. Item A, again, is kind of in conjunction with item A on the hardware side. We keep a certain amount aside every year for general software purchases. It could be just ad hoc stuff that somebody asks for, something that was unexpected, to replace update obsolete server operating systems, maybe from server 2008 to 2012. Every once in a while, we have to update. We use for our back-end database Microsoft SQL. We have one 2005 server left. The rest are 2008. So those will be upgraded to either 2008 or 2012. So it's monies for that and for what they call client access licenses, which are individual licenses, X amount of licenses for users who are going to access that server. Microsoft, on top of the software itself, you have to have a license for each named user for the server. There's different licensing models. We use the named user because we're small. We don't have that many employees. Item B is in conjunction with item B on the hardware side. The VM vSphere software is the software we use to create these virtual machines, to cluster and to manage them, and to be able to move one virtual machine. I've got a diagram I can hand out after. It's a very simple diagram of how it works. But it allows us to move virtual machines from one physical piece of hardware to another. If there's a failure, it'll actually do it on its own. If our Exchange server, if our mail server was to go down for a hardware reason, it'll automatically, it's called vMotion, it'll automatically move itself while people are up and running to another piece of hardware to run it on. You won't even know the difference. We would get the alarms that it happened, but, and vSphere does a lot of other stuff. That's one of the things it allows you to do. This stuff's come a long way. It's come a long way. And there's some very smart people out there that created this. Item C is something we keep in every year too. This is custom programming that could be related to outage management, different types of databases we use for GIS, possibly GPS type of stuff. Fleet maintenance we're looking into this year. We also just did something recently where the way the bills are mailed out, we've created a different way to do it. We send the mailer the raw data now, so they can manipulate the address, and they can make sure we have the correct barcode, so we're still allowed the bulk rate for all our mailings. Again, that's development work that sometimes we can't do in here, so we farm that out to a local developer to do. So it's monies for that type of stuff. Some of it, again, doesn't get used. It's almost like a constant carryover. Some of it is, some of it isn't. Item D is the Veeam is a product that allows this cluster replication of virtual machines to take place where you have a cluster in one location, a cluster in another. This software makes sure they're always in sync. If they're not in sync, again, you'll get alarms, you'll get something telling you they're not in sync. But overall, what it allows you to do is at any one time, God forbid something happened to this building or the structure, we could literally operate out of another building because these two systems are always in sync. And between these two systems, it's probably 90% of the software we have, the systems we have, certainly enough to run the business out of that building if there was some type of disaster. And again, it's relatively inexpensive enough. It's the risk of not doing it versus the expense of doing it. So it's not big money. The last item refers to some of the security equipment I alluded to before. We use Barracuda products in here for a lot of different things: perimeter security, mail gateway, mail archiving, backup type of stuff. The Energizer updates come due about every 3 years, where really what that means is you're paying Barracuda a licensing fee, and it allows you to keep using their systems. It gives you the nightly updates for antivirus, anti-malware, or whatever else. And it also gives you an overnight replacement program where if one of they're physical appliances, they're actually physical appliances that we use. If one were to fail or go down, they will ship you one configured overnight. So it's a good program. And some of those they're called Energizers. Some of those are coming due in FY14, and that's why that's on here. Other than that, it's a relatively simple. We've kind of got it down. After enough years of doing this, we've got it down to what we feel is a pretty good deal.
That's great.
Any questions? CEB? Tony?
I see Windows 8. Are you going to deploy Windows 8 workstations?
We've done a couple, and it's a huge learning curve for users, and it's gotten a lot of bad press. It's not anywhere near as bad as people would think. What it does do is if you have an older machine that was running XP, it kind of breathes new life into an old machine for a lot cheaper than buying a PC. So we have done it in a couple machines with people we felt that the learning curve wouldn't be so bad, and it performs well. The security's good. It kind of makes an old machine new. You have to bite the bullet and kind of reformat the whole thing. Upgrades don't work that well. But if you're willing to do that for a machine that you kind of thought was dead and had so much hardware or software installed, uninstalled, where it just came to a crawl, sometimes there's no way to fix those other than to reformat it and lay down a new OS, and Windows 8 seems to be...
No, it's interesting.
I like it. I like it. I really do. It's not gotten a good, but it works.
A couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Item D, that's brand new.
The Veeam backup and recovery.
Yeah.
We have that on one cluster now. We'll need the license for that for the second cluster out in North Reading.
Okay.
Yep.
See, I thought GIS was done.
Well, I don't think it'll ever be done. I'm probably not the exact person to talk to on that, but it's kind of it's an ongoing thing because the big picture someday is to have everything that would be the jumping off point with everything for your customer relationship management, your, vehicle tracking, work order management. So we're trying to build the base map, and I do agree, we've been at it for a long time. We did hire a GIS administrator finally, and we've made huge inroads on getting the whole base map built, the electrical connectivity model. There's just a lot to it, and eventually the goal is to integrate all these systems with your outage management. It's a lot of
More
work.
and more stuff.
Yeah, more and more stuff, but we feel that we're going in the right direction.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Okay.
It's good to see everybody.
Which section do you want to move on to?
Peter, you have 26 with you?
Communication equipment, yeah.
Okay, we'll start from the top. I just want to make sure before Mark goes.
Okay.
We'll start from number 1, Mr. Chair.
Number 1, sure, go ahead.
You want Tommy, both and I up here, since we're gonna be going back and forth?
That makes sense.
You have to pardon me, I have a cold as well.
Sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
All right, we're gonna start with project number 1, the 5W9 reconductoring Wildwood Street. 5W9 is a 336 spacer cable that originates at Station 5 on Wildwood Street in Wilmington, heads up to Ballard Street. This is a 3-year project where we looking to reconductor that circuit over the next 3 fiscal years. That circuit has seen a lot of load growth, excuse me, and there's approximately a megawatt worth of load looking to go in over the next fiscal year between Target and another mini mall up there. So that's project 1.
Any questions on,
Yeah, I got one.
Go ahead, George.
So pretty much for Wilmington, this is gonna double your current carrying capability for that area. down
On that circuit, correct.
all the way down there. So Ballardville being one of our industrial areas so this makes perfect sense considering the growth and everything that's going on down there.
Yes, and Target's on schedule to
Yeah.
build out there, starting maybe the summer or the fall.
Okay.
So,
So you guys are kind of a little proactive on this. It'll be ahead of
yes, I mean, it was already in the budget because of load, then the addition of this load growth up there, necessitates it.
Okay.
A question?
Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Should it be even higher than what you're projecting? The question is really just centered around when you'll have to come back because of the growth that's there. Would it be better to?
We can only max out the circuits to 15 megawatts, so this will bring that circuit up to 15 megawatts.
Okay.
If we have more needs up there, we'd have to bring another circuit in. We have 2 other circuits up there. One feeds Charles River and one comes up Andover Street. So there are things that we can do if we have to add a circuit
Add
up there.
different,
This
okay.
right now would be the solution.
Great, thank you.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
I sent a note around about this. It was just kind of a point of departure for a larger kind of question about when you know that you're kind of at the limit with the circuit, whether there's ever a strategy of looking at how demand response in that particular area could be deployed to relieve what's happening. Obviously, the presentation didn't mention that there's a Target and a mini mall. That obviously changes.
Right, that came in after we had already prepared
Yeah,
the budget.
So, I mean, of course, that changes the thinking quite a bit. But as a sort of a philosophy, does that ever happen where you see something cresting and peaking, where you say, okay, let's throw some more demand response or some more programs in that particular area, and not spend the, whatever, 200 grand this year and save the system a little bit.
From engineering on my end, I have to bill for what they're gonna put up. That would, I think, be more of an energy services question directed at them. As far as, I'm not trying to dodge the question. I think
No,
it's
that's
more.
fine. I understand.
I think it's more in their field and their department.
I mean, I think, and it might even be higher than that, like it's sort of a philosophy or a policy of the department as a whole, whether this is a way to do business that could make sense for a lot of reasons.
Well, it's not something we've considered currently.
So, I
And
don't,
it may be a bold consideration in the future.
I think, I would agree that it does, and probably not on this particular one, but that it's something that I hope we could talk a lot more about in the coming months.
Growth.
Okay, anything else on the item 1? Item 2?
Item 2, the capital project number 2, it's the reconductor of 4W4, which it runs out of the back of Station 4 onto West Street, runs up West Street to Industrial Way, down Industrial Way to Woburn Street. It's an express feeder. It's probably about 40 years old. It needs to be upgraded to a 795 aluminum, which is probably double the capacity of what's there now. Also, it would be, the materials would be more storm hardened, so more resistant to weather, storms, animals. And it also gives us options if we have to move load around during the summertime.
This is along the same lines as the previous project, another industrial area,
Yes.
heavily in Wilmington.
Yeah, West Street to Industrial Way.
Yeah, exactly. So you're being proactive as far as an aging conductor.
This is towards the end of its life. It gives us a lot more options when we have to switch load around. And it's I think every year at this time we look for vulnerabilities, and try to have a priority list and take care of those vulnerabilities. So this would be one of them.
Bob?
A couple of education questions for me. The anchors, what are those?
The anchors hold the poles, the guy wire with the anchors in the ground.
Okay. And so you're gonna put in 5,500 feet, but you take out 5,500 feet. Can you tell us just briefly what happens after you take that 5,500 feet out?
Take out the old wire.
Yeah, what happens to
It
it?
probably gets scrapped.
Somebody buy it?
Yeah, we have a scrap dealer.
Everything gets recycled.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to section 3.
Number 3 is there were 3 Linfield UIDs that the department was upgrading. The last one was, in the last budget, was Needham. This one is for Trog Holly. This one is a carryover. The bid opening is tomorrow for the excavating contractor. This type of project is always going to be a carryover because we started in May. It's going to run through the summer into September. So what you see here is a already approved project, and this is just the carryover portion that's going to run into the next budget, from this fiscal year to the next fiscal year.
Okay, any questions on 3? No. 4?
4 is the last of the 3 Linfield UIDs that we are going to upgrade. This is the Cook's Farm area, similar to what we've done in the other 2 subdivisions. The cable, these subdivisions were over 40 years old. It's direct buried cable, old transformers, old wire. It's 4 kV right now. It was original to when we built Linfield substation, so it was on a 4 kV distribution system. Right now, the area is fed with a step down. So the intention here is to upgrade that area to bring it up to current standards. The issue is now, if we ever have a problem out there and it's the wrong time of year, we could really be in trouble because it's direct buried. There's no manholes, no conduits to pull wire out, pull wire in. So this follows in the line of the other 2 projects of upgrading this UID.
Okay, any questions on 4? Moving on to 5.
Project 5 is a 4W, circuit 4W5 to 4W6 tie. Right now, circuit 4W5 originates out of Station 4, comes out on West Street, heads down West Street, feeds the Oak Street area out to the Woburn Town line. 4W6 is a circuit that originates on West Street, but also heads down Summer Street. This feeds the old Addison Wesley property, all the load on South Main Street. This project here will create a tie on Oak Street between 4W5 and 4W6 so that we have more flexibility to move load around from South Main Street from 4W6 onto 4W5. We don't have that capability now, and we really didn't need it until they really started developing the Addison Wesley property. So this project's setting some poles and running, extending the three-phase circuit down Oak Street and tying it from so this will tie West Street out to Summer Street.
Okay, any questions on 5? Item 6.
Item 6 is a URD upgrades. In talking with Kevin, we created a capital project. This is usually something that would have been done in routine construction, but this item and the next item, what Tommy will speak to, we broke it out so that we have a lot of older underground subdivisions, I should say 65 plus, that are over 25 years old. The cable's coming to its end of life, transformers rust out, they get covered up with mulch. There are some of these subdivisions are in step-down areas that we have to convert. We have to upgrade them before we can try to convert an area to 13.8. So this is on the idea of the other UID projects, but these are subdivisions that have manholes, transformers, pull boxes, everything that we can get at. So this is kind of a catch-all. If we go into an area, we find that we have some bad transformers, we get some voltage complaints, we have a cable failure. Any work we do will be charged to this project instead of coming out of the routine construction.
Okay, any questions on 6? 7.
Capital project number 7, the step-down area or upgrades. This is similar to what Peter talked about with the underground subdivisions. And this is older overhead divisions where at the time that the area was converted to the 13,000 volts, they would hang a step down, keep the voltage the same, the 4 kV, and not rebuild that area. So every year there's a few of these that we'll go in and we'll redo the area. We know it's coming, we capitalize it this year. Some examples for you would be up in Haverhill Street, North Reading, the Anthony Road and Peter Road area. That's a step-down area where we'd go in, we'd rebuild those streets, get rid of the step-down, upgrade the voltage to 13,000 volts. Over in Linfield, the Essex Street area up near Evans Drive, same situation. Step-down, old construction, we'd rebuild that. Also in Reading here, the West and South Street area, there's a step-down down there. We could rebuild, same kind of thing. Every year there's 2 or 3 of them.
And it usually comes out of the routine construction, so this year we have it as a capital project so we can better track those numbers and charge it to a capital project.
Those 1-aught and 4-aught conductor, are those aluminum?
Yes.
Question?
Go ahead. Yep.
So what we're hearing is getting rid of the step-down transformers eliminates a point of failure. Is that correct? How we should interpret
Yes,
it?
it limits your liability there.
Okay. Good.
You lose one step down, you could lose, 400 or 500 customers.
Right. Larger number of things you have in the system.
Yeah, exactly.
Something's going to go wrong. Sure.
Any further questions on 7? Moving on to 8.
Well, 8, 9, and 10 going to be presented by Nick, so I don't know if we should skip to the ones we're going to do and then Nick can come up, or you want
Okay,
to stay
Mr.
in
Chair,
order?
can we go out of order? just to
Sure,
keep the
sure.
process moving forward?
Yep,
All right, we're going to jump to 11. Tommy's going to present 11.
11, okay.
Capital project number 11. This is a underground getaway out of Station 4. Runs up Causeway Road onto onto Lowell Street, and then down to Beverly Road area. It rises and goes overhead after that. We're gonna replace the underground cable, you know, from Station 4 out to Beverly Road. Again, this will increase the capacity from 10 megawatts to 15 megawatts. The cable is 35, 40 years old. You know, towards the end of the life, you know, we're replacing it with new cable and higher capacity.
Okay, any questions on section 11? Bob?
When you're splicing the cables and all that, is there an outage for customers?
No, we set it up so that there's, that the circuit is switched over to another circuit, and we do everything dead.
Okay, are we going to 15? Because-
15 would be the next.
Okay.
Project 15 is a getaway replacement for Station 5. There's two getaways. The getaways are the underground cable out of the substation. At Station 5, the runs are fairly short. They go across the street. This project would upgrade the underground conductors on 5W9 and 5W10. 5W9 is the project number one. We're going to upgrade the overhead. This goes hand in hand with that, with upgrading the underground cable to get to that 15 megawatt rating. 5W10 was an old direct buried underground circuit that went down Wildwood Street out to Textron. That breaker position is open. That cable has since been taken out of service and unused. And what this project will allow us to do is create an extra spare breaker position in the 5W10 position. We already have the conduit there. We already have the breaker. So it's just a matter of pulling in some wire and hooking it up. At Station 5, there are 3 circuits on each side of the bus, 5W4, 5W5, and 5W6 is a spare, and that's on the transformer D. This would create a spare position on the E-bus as 5W10, where 5W8 and 5W9 are regular distribution circuits. It gives us more flexibility in the event that we lost the 35 line that feeds that substation, if we lost a transformer or anything like that. So it's a spare, and it's relatively short money to do that. Give us a little more flexibility.
Security.
Any questions on 15? Okay, presume 30 is the next.
Well, do you want to go down to, I have under other projects, I was going to talk to 16, 22, and 26,
Okay.
if that works, or do you want to wait on the other projects?
Well, who is going to take 30?
Nick.
You?
Nick DeLaba was.
Okay, all right, then we'll go to 16.
Okay. Item 16 is the line item for our capital expenditures on transformers. This is in here every year as far as the transformer purchases. These are single-phase, 3-phase pole mounts and pad mounts. These are to replenish stock as we replace transformers fail, new customers move in, and projects like that. Any ones we use from stock now, these monies will be used to replace those to keep an inventory.
Okay. Any questions on 16?
If I had
Yep,
a
go ahead.
question on that, and Kevin had nicely answered part of this for me earlier, but the question is really, what's the typical lifetime of a transformer? And I know that's difficult because of the lightning strikes or other things that could happen. But are there any manufacturers of transformers that produce more of a premium quality transformer that would last longer, that you pay a little bit more for, but you get extra life out of it?
They'll tell you that, but, you know, we've had old ones that are out there that are lasting forever, and the only thing wrong with them is they start rusting out. Then we'll have new ones we put out, and you could have a lightning strike, and it just hits the wrong way, and, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, anything else on 16? Bob?
A few years ago, between Katrina and China, transformer prices went sky high. Are they more reasonable these days?
They're still up there because of the metals cost with copper and the petroleum. Oil is up there, so They are still up there as far as cost-wise, but not as bad as it was then, probably.
Thank you.
Okay. 17, Peter?
We're gonna go to 22,
22.
and then 26.
If I could make a request
Sure.
for the future, could we number the pages? So we can just call it a page number and we can all jump there.
Project 22 is the engineering analysis software and data conversion. This project was approved in the previous budget. We got a late start getting it out there. The vendor right now is currently working on the data conversion. He received the GIS information from Bob Gannon, GIS guy. They are working on that right now, but this project is going to carry over into the next fiscal year. So that's what this money is here, is a carryover. We're going to spend a portion of the money this fiscal year, and the rest is a carryover.
Okay, any questions on this?
What's the 25 cents?
What's that?
What's the 25 cents in the second quarter?
It didn't automatically round, I guess.
And what was your last one, Peter?
Last one will be 26.
26, okay.
We have a line item here for communication equipment. And as Mark had alluded to before, as we use the fiber more, as we connect to our fiber loop more for better communications between devices in the field and our SCADA systems or any of our computer systems, we need certain equipment to be able to terminate that fiber, some Ethernet switches, fiber switches. So this is just kind of a line item here to, we need enclosures as well, and the labor to do the splicing and the terminating of the fiber. So this is a line item for that purpose.
Just a question, quick question.
Go ahead, John.
Are there any limitations on the fiber optic cable in terms of capacity? I mean, usually fiber optic can carry huge amounts of.
We haven't run into it at all yet with the projects that we've been working on. I mean, they've talked about the bandwidth and latency and all that, but we haven't run into that.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
So on the bid limit, is that by quarter or by the whole job? Like,
I don't follow what you're getting into.
So because it's 100,000, it has to go out to bid, or because it's 25,000 a quarter?
Anything over 25,000 will go out to bid.
Okay, per quarter or per year?
All the quarters represent is a breakdown of the work by quarter.
So none of this would be bid, or it would be bid because it's 100?
It absolutely would be bid.
Okay.
Yeah,
Even though it's 25 per quarter?
right. All that is a neat and tidy breakdown in a box with a bow.
When we do the transformers, we bid all the transformers out, they all go out to bid. So there'll be multiple bids for different types of transformers, because each one will be over 25,000, each type we buy.
Right. I mean, I was referring here to this item.
Mhm.
This will get bid, right?
Oh, the communication equipment? It may or may not, it depends. If I only need 3 cabinets, and the 3 cabinets, and I get pricing, and it's under $25,000, then it's the best pricing. So we follow the.
But the total amount is 100,000.
Right, but that it's going to include labor, cabinets, and any other equipment. It may not all be the same equipment. If I'm going to bid out an Ethernet switch, and I need 8 of them, and I know that it's going to be over $25,000, then that's the portion that gets bid out.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk of like regionalization of procurement. Is that done by RMLD?
We've talked about that. Situations like this, it would never work, but we have discussed it, and, we realize that there are synergies out there that would make it more efficient to get together with other municipalities and make purchases of volume, et cetera. But for something like that this wouldn't work.
Yes.
This particular project is specialized.
Yeah, so I was sort of panning out to the more general philosophy of
Yeah.
regionalization to save money, and would be good to do.
Okay. Any other questions?
And
Are
if
you-
you're all done, Nick will come up and present the other ones.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Peter.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Tom.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, we go back.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is, if it's okay with the
Sure,
chairs,
go ahead.
I'd like to go project 30, then I'll pick up 12, 13, 14, and then we'll move throughout the book with what Nick has left.
Okay. Go right ahead.
So we'll begin with project 30.
30?
Okay, Project 30 is for the replacement of the remote terminal unit up at Station 3. The existing RTU was installed back in 2000 and uses the legacy telegear protocol. It was done that way to work with the SCADA system back then. The existing RTU is not IP addressable, and it doesn't have any Ethernet connections. The RTU needs to be upgraded to add the functionality of the existing SEL relays that we have at station number 3. The new RTU will give us the ability to communicate with the relays similar to what we just did at Station 4. Station 4 last year was just recently upgraded, and it was really easy to program. We actually had some issues with the SCADA system recently, and we couldn't get the system back up and running until we found the piece of the puzzle that was broken. So it was quite a challenge to try to get this thing up and running. So we realized that it wouldn't work with the existing system we had, the new system we had.
The question?
Go ahead.
Are there more of these out in the system that we should get rid of?
Station 4 has just been upgraded. We're doing some more additions to it. Station 5 is in this year's budget, and we do anticipate having it done. Station 5 RTU is a lot smaller. There's less circuits out of it, so it's not as involved as Station 4 or Station 3 would be. So this would be the last one.
This would be the last one, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions under section 30? Okay, moving on. You have 12, Nick?
I'll take
I
that.
think Kevin's going to be doing it.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
So on to capital project 12. This is service installations for our industrial and commercial customers. It involves new or upgraded services throughout the 4 towns we service. $55,549. Last year's budget, FY13, was $63,074. We haven't seen many upgraded services or new services within fiscal year 13 due to the economic situation. Still, we have to have a budget item to expect that situations like maybe Peter mentioned Target will take place, or a mini mall. They come up, we have to service them, it's our responsibility, so we have this project for that.
Okay, any questions on the 12? 13?
Similarly, 13 is for the residential customers. Again, new upgraded services. Last year's budget, $207,923. This year's budget, $200,302. Most certainly, this has been affected by the economy year over year. As of the end of February, beginning of March, we're about $160,000 to $170,000 of expenditure.
Okay, any questions under 13? You have 14, Kevin?
I do.
Okay.
Moving on to 14, routine construction. This is the project that we kind of carved out our underground areas and step-down areas to have more specificity, to have individual projects. Seems as though routine construction ended up as a catch-all, and many times would end up eclipsing the amount that we would provide during the budget. So we hope that the tack that we've taken yields the way it should. Last year's budgeted amount for this was just under $1 million, $988,211.
Okay, any questions on 14? Okay, we're gonna move on to,
Nick, what's your next item?
Mine is,
17?
we can go to 17 or we can go back to 8, whatever.
Let's go back in the book. Let's complete the book in front of you then.
yep,
So we'll go to
section 8.
Eight is a partial carryover for the replacement of the relays at Station 4. We have purchased all the relays. They were spec'd out. They went out to bid, purchased and received. So this project is for the installation, testing and commissioning of all these relays on approximately 16 circuits at the Goss substation. Mostly labor. There will be some incidental material that we might need to do these replacements, but all the relays have been purchased.
Okay, any,
Question, if I may?
sure, go ahead.
And I understand that those are solid-state relays replacing the electromechanical ones.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And reliability of the solid-state is as good or better than the electromechanical?
Yes, you know, they are newer, they're a newer technology. A lot of times with the old electromechanicals is, if you're gonna replace one for one, you're replacing a 30-year-old relay with a 30-year-old relay. They're individual relays. The new relays are a relay in a box, where now could have 3 or 4 individual relays there. Now it's all in one box, programmable, a lot more features that you can program into it,
Sure, yep.
and a lot more information you can get out of it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any further questions on 8? 9, is that you, Nick?
Yes.
Okay.
9 is also a project at the Goss Station. It's to replace 6 35 kV potential transformers and some of the wiring and steel conduit that's associated with these potential transformers. The transformers are 30-plus years old, and they're oil-filled transformers. The newer type of potential transformers that we would purchase would be solid dielectric. There wouldn't be any oil in them. There's no leaks or anything on these, but they are getting up there in age. And also, we don't have any spares for these units.
Okay, any questions on this section?
These transformers,
George?
do they contain PCBs?
It's unknown. There's no way to sample it while it's in service. There's very little oil in them, maybe 2 gallons at the most. No leaks. When they are taken down and disposed, they will have to be tested prior to the disposal.
So it's most likely assumed until.
Could be a possibility. Could be. Not 100% sure.
Okay, any further questions? You have 10?
Yes.
Moving on to 10.
10 is a small upgrade to some equipment up at Station 3. We plan on replacing 6 15 kV cutouts. Also, we plan on installing some animal protection on various equipment at the substation. We haven't had any problems with these cutouts here, but they're very similar construction to the line cutouts that we have issues with in the field. So we want to be proactive and get them changed out before we have an issue with them.
Okay, any questions under 10? You have, what is your next
Well,
one?
we've done 30, and the only one I have left is 17, so if you want to go to
Okay.
17, we can finish up with that. And 17 is in a few different, there's 17 A, C, and D. I'll go through them one at a time. 17A is very similar to the transformers that we usually have every year. We usually have some line items for meter purchases every year. A is for some time of use meters. We're trying to sign as many people up to the time of use meter as possible. So we're not sure how many we're going to need, but we do have a good amount in stock, but you know, we're anticipating the need for some more next year. We don't, because of all the upgrades we just have done with the residential and presently now with the commercial meters, we didn't carry a lot of other meters in this budget. We don't anticipate needing any. The other items, B, C, and D, are primary metering potential transformers, and also primary metering current transformers, and some secondary current transformers. These are used for some primary metering installations and secondary meter installations. Presently now, we don't have a lot of new potential in current transformers on the shelf in the stockroom. We have some older ones that we can reuse, but we'd like to do an inventory and see what we need and make some purchases. We haven't made some purchases of these in several years.
Okay, any questions on the 17?
Just a quick one.
Dave.
What is the current number of TOU meters out there now?
I think it's about 300.
Yeah, Jane would know a lot more than I do as far as how many are out there. It's probably a reasonable number, around 300.
Residential.
Yeah, that number was printed somewhere a couple months ago. I'm just curious if it's changed at all.
We do occasionally. I think we put in a couple this week, so we do get the requests through customer service for some installations. We do have some commercial customers on a time of use rate also.
Okay, any further questions under this section?
Okay, there's a couple more.
All right, go ahead.
17C is a partial carryover. We anticipate that the commercial meter upgrade will not be fully completed by the end of this present fiscal year. We feel it's going to carry over a lot of the older installations, ones that might need outages to bigger customers, are going to carry over into next year. All the meters have been purchased, so we don't anticipate, that there might be some residual meters that might have to be ordered, but we don't anticipate many.
Okay. Anything else under that section?
We have one more for 17D, and 17D would be the upgrade of what we call a 500 club. We manually read the 500 club meters today. We propose replacing the existing meters so they can be read with the fixed network. It's a small population of our meters, but it is the large revenue customers. So I think there's somewhere less than 100 or so customers. So this will be the last of the meter upgrades.
Okay. Anything else under this? Bob?
Kevin, could you explain 500 Club for newcomers?
500 Club is customers over 500 kVA.
So it's the biggies.
It's the bigger users of power. I think it's 65, maybe?
Somewhere around there, yes.
65 customers.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Okay, where do we,
Dave will take, beginning with 18. Dave will start on project 18.
okay?
Good evening. The first one I have is number 18. It's the purchase of new pickup trucks for the department. Replace two existing pickup trucks, two existing vehicles with two new pickup trucks, and dispose of the older trucks as surplus. We have one 1999 Ford Econoline van with approximately 75,000 miles that we'd like to replace. Van would replace that with a 4x4 pickup for the line department. The second vehicle is for engineering. That's a 2001 Ford Ranger with 78,000 miles. Replace that with a 4x4 vehicle as well. Both vehicles, we've seen increase in maintenance cost with them, and due to the age of the vehicle, it's time to replace them.
Okay, any questions under 18?
Just a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Is a 4x4, is that all-wheel drive? Trucks?
No, it could be, it's just a 4x4, so it'd be either two-wheel drive, then you put it into four-wheel drive, and
can't put it into
if you go
four-wheel drive.
off-road or in snow.
Right, exactly.
Yes, right, exactly,
Right,
yep.
okay, thank you.
I do have just a quick question along the lines
Sure.
of the
Go ahead.
procurement. How do individual or pairs of trucks get purchased? Is it a part of some state fleet that you can get into, or how does that work?
Well, we do look at the state. There's a state contracts that they have. So many purchases we make, we look at the state contract. For the fleet, we could look at the state contract and see if that offers the best price.
What
Or we
does
could
that
go out and
refer to?
competitively bid as well.
What is the state contract? What does that refer to?
The state has a number of dealers that they've supposedly established what they think might be the best price, and we can leverage that contract. And they do recommend, though, that, to look around to see if you're, in fact getting the best price. So we've gone to vendors that are on the state contract, and we've gone out to multiple vendors to make sure that we get the best price.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, moving on, 19, is that you, Dave?
Yes, it is. 19 is the purchase of 2 line department trucks. This is similar to a carryover where we, because it takes such a long time to purchase and order the vehicles, in excess of 240 days, we will be presenting to the board the end of this month 2 vehicles that we'd like to get approval on, that we went out to bid. Now, once we order those vehicles, then it'll be the carryover, or the vehicles will arrive in 2014 budget year. And this is really just to make sure that we have funds appropriated for the vehicles when they arrive in 2014. That's the intent of this.
Okay, any questions
Just
on
a
the
real
19?
quick one. Much of the time, the bucket truck, the diesel engine's running to power all the stuff, right? The bucket, most of the time, as opposed to driving. I've read, and a couple colleagues have told me that this is actually an application where hybrid is actually a real big benefit when it's just electricity running all that stuff. I'm just wondering if you ever looked at a hybrid bucket truck, and would
Yep.
you look at it here?
Yeah, we did I would say a very exhaustive search and meeting with different companies and vendors and users of the hybrid vehicle.
Yeah.
And there's different types of hybrid vehicles out there. There's some that are higher maintenance, some that are truly hybrid, where they recharge the battery system through the engine. The problem is the technology for these particular vehicles really isn't fully developed. Most companies purchase 1 or 2 as a trial. And then they, the batteries don't live up to the life that they say.
Right.
There's issues with transmission. So they've had some issues with the power in the vehicles. So at this point, I had hoped actually to really look at them and maybe make that part of the bid, but we're not there yet. And we're looking at $250,000 per vehicle, and they're $60,000 to $70,000 more.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, I'm glad you're looking at it, because you can't believe everything you read.
right.
Except your articles,
Yeah,
right?
that's my colleague, not me.
Dave, what are the age of the trucks that you're replacing? And two-part question, what are you doing with the vehicles that you are replacing?
So the vehicles that we're replacing are probably about 10 years old. I don't have the exact year right now, but the vehicles, we would move them back in the fleet. So we would move them back to be either a spare vehicle or or used less frequently, and then we'd evaluate what we have, and something with higher maintenance cost, we may surplus it. So if these vehicles that we're replacing are the vehicles with the highest maintenance cost and aren't reliable, we just may move them off the fleet and surplus them.
I didn't know if they had a value where you could kind of trade them in and apply it towards something, or put it out to auction for another community that might be looking for a truck like this.
Yeah, we do it a couple ways. One, you could auction it off through the bid list of the highest bidder, could purchase the vehicle. We haven't traded a vehicle in, but we have tried to sell them. And then, depending on the type of vehicle, we would offer it to some of the towns.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions on 19? 20?
Okay, 20, yes. 20 is the covered storage building that we're proposing. I'm proposing that this is a multi-year project. So the first year, looking for $150,000 to be spent at the fourth quarter of the fiscal year 2014 for engineering design, permitting, and to do the site work. And the second year is when we'd construct the building, which would be the first quarter of the next fiscal year. So they actually would go back to back, but just because of budget and time, they'll show up in two fiscal budgets. The building would be 80 by 120, and we would use this building as we start to move out of the Barbas building. That would be the plan, so that we would move it onto a facility here down to the end of the lot, the northerly portion of the lot, where next to the garage, we have some space there. And we would build the building in that location, and that would give us about 96,000 square feet of a building footprint that would be able to transition into and move out of the Barbas building. The first year, as I said, is 150. The second year is, for this building, would be about 700, and we're looking over 2 years to construct the building at 850,000, and it would be really covered storage with sides, and keep our material out of the weather.
Any questions on 20?
Just a quick question. And David, have you looked at other alternatives for storage on a square foot basis? And I ask that question because in inventory storage, this seems like a large number on a per square foot basis for inventory. And if it's for specialized needs, I can certainly understand that, and proximity and all those other kinds of good things. But I'm just trying to understand whether it's how much above commercial rates is it? And,
the building itself?
right.
Yeah.
So if it's $850,000 total, divided by how many square feet?
Yeah, it would be
what is that worth out?
$88 a square foot.
$88?
$88.50 a square foot for the
$88.50.
building, including everything, yeah.
That seems a bit high. When I was looking at Cummings Park, for example, granted it's storage space that they're advertising, not nearly as large as what you're proposing, but they're in the sort of $14 to $20 per square foot range. So 80 whatever seems awfully high. That's
Yeah, I mean, one is, if I'm not misunderstanding, one is you're paying a lease for the building, and this is to build the building. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
So you're looking, yeah. So in this building, we would keep the material that we use frequently. So we want to make sure we have something, on the property so that the trucks can go in and out of, people can go in and out of. But it's all material that we use.
sure. But then when you amortize it over 40 years or so, it drops down to the right level.
Right,
Is what you're
yeah.
saying. Great. Thank you.
You figure then we're getting out of the lease building that we have.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
Tony?
How much equipment is currently lost or degraded because you don't have appropriate storage?
Right now, we have almost all of our equipment, except for some items up at Station 3 that are exposed to the weather. But most everything is undercover in the garage building and in the Barbas building behind us. The problem is the Barbas building is a lease storage space. So I would say a minimal amount of equipment is exposed to the weather
Okay.
currently.
Okay, anything else under 20? Bob?
This is the first I've heard of this. I'd like to know, when does this go out to bid so that we can hear more about it?
Well, this is really an open building with a facade in the front to match the front of the buildings on Ash Street. It also has a roofing system that has a beefed up capacity to carry, in the future, a solar array. So there's a couple things here that's a bit different than your normal building. We're trying to look to the future and the way future trends are going, we're also trying to make a move to get out of the Barbers building and the rent we're paying. So, getting to your point, Bob, this is Q4, the design on this is planned for Q4 to begin.
Does that go to bid?
We would go out to bid on this, I'm almost sure,
Yes.
David.
So the board
Yes.
would get more details
Yeah.
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
Thank
Again,
you.
a multi-year project, this is not a rush. Our
Anything?
expectation is that we'd be moving out of the Barbers building FY16.
Correct.
So July 1st, 2015. That's the type of schedule we'd like to maintain with us.
Okay, any other questions on the 20? 21, Dave?
Okay. 21 is the HVAC system to replace the old inefficient HVAC equipment with newer equipment that's more efficient. Right now, we have, the plan would be to replace 2 chillers, Yazaki chillers. One hasn't worked in a while and is not repairable. And so we are operating on 1 chiller right now. It's original since the building was built in redone in 1994. We have 2 boilers, HP Smith boilers. Again, they're original to the building, and they're currently operating at around 82% efficiency. And they're cast iron boilers. Both boilers are leaking, and the plan would be to replace both next year. We, there was to comment on, where we are with an audit, because there's some concern that around the replacement of these items holistically with all the other items that we have to do. So this clearly is tied to making the building more energy efficient, having an energy audit done that we've had done in 2007. I've already spoken with the company to do another energy audit to see, there's some changes in technology and some things we can do. So the energy audit will be done by Energy New England. They'll do the audit, and I think there's many opportunities to, in addition to replacing the boilers and the chillers, we have the building control system, energy management system that needs to be upgraded and replaced that will be tied to this. And through the audit, we have insulation that needs to be done. And then there's other work in next year that would want to replace the air handling units, and also would want to tie into this as energy efficiency, changing the lighting, water conservation. There's many things that we need to do in this building.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that, because obviously you're alluding to something I said around earlier. I appreciate the detail on that. To expand out on that a little bit, so we have 3 big projects happening here on the campus. There's going to be a big excavation for this garage. There's Station 1, which is going to get a lot of renovations, and then this building getting a pretty serious energy rehab. And I'm just wondering if there's a comprehensive overview of how to have the whole campus be tied in, and even since you're going to be doing excavation anyway, look at a ground source system, since you're already digging up the land, and that would tie all 3 together. And it would just be, I don't know if that's feasible, but it seems like there's an opportunity here to just do it once, do it deeply, do it so that we save huge amounts of energy for many decades of time. So it would be great to have just an agenda item at a future meeting where we could just look at that whole thing and see the numbers and see what you're proposing as a big picture.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think there's opportunities to evaluate different means to heat and cool the building. We could, the plan is to hire an engineering company to, come up with a design and make recommendations on what we'd do. So we could certainly bring that into the design and evaluation and make a recommendation based on that, what we need to do. The risk we run, though, is that, we shouldn't delay the mechanical system work on these 2 items in this building, because I've been here for 8 months, and I'm trying to put a grasp on all the control systems that need an improvement, that obviously I'm aware of, that address also things that you've seen, energy management systems and the boilers and the chillers, are at risk right now. So I think, if my plan would be to hire a company, come up with a design recommendations, and obviously would come to the board with our plan as well as we move forward.
And that would be great, just to have that input, so that by approving this budget, we aren't then setting in motion, putting just chillers and boilers for this building out to bid, and that gets done in the absence of a larger plan that we've all talked over, looked at the numbers, looked at the payback. I mean, there's a huge opportunity here, I think, for great PR for RMLD, great example to set for all the other companies and buildings out there, that we would like them to do the same kind of thing. And we could get some good press on it and just have a big impact beyond even those savings that we could have. So I just hope that we all can kind of agree on that. And
Well, we're
think big.
cognizant, we're cognizant with that this really needs a comprehensive analysis. And Dave's gonna head that up. We understand that.
So
My goal would be over 3 years, Dave, to make sure that this building is, in a 3-year period, is we've addressed everything from the HVAC, energy efficient systems, to lighting, water conservation. Really, we'll have a building and a campus we'll be very proud of.
And that this isn't getting put out to bid until that larger report and presentation to the board is done.
Yes, we have quite a bit of work
Is
to
that
do.
right? Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
George?
Dave, what fuel type are these boilers, the HB Smith?
Gas.
They're all gas-fired,
Yes.
so you could go condensing boilers. So you could really bring these up in efficiency big time. What are the age of these HB?
These are 1994 they were put in. Right
84?
now, we could go with gas at 95% direct
84.
vent.
Right.
94, wasn't it?
94.
94.
Presently, they're 84, correct?
94.
94.
94.
They were new with this building.
Yeah, the new.
1994.
I meant the energy efficiency
No,
rate.
Oh, the energy efficiency.
They're 82.
The energy efficiency is
82%.
82.
I mean, that's right,
Yeah.
but it's.
Well, I know that the HB Smith had some problems in particular years, and I think around 94 to 97, they were actually had leaks with seals and a few different items. But my question was for the gas, more of an efficiency with a condensing boiler, something along those lines. I understand geothermal, which would be a great option to have, but where it's an urgency, I mean, that might be something you want to look at.
Okay.
A more proven workhorse, too. You know?
Thank you.
Okay, anything else under 21? Okay, do you have any other sections, Dave?
23.
23, okay.
23 is a new radio system. Right now, the radio system we have is probably about 20 years old. There's some dead spots. It's a little bit older technology, obviously, 20 years old. We've been evaluating a radio system that's a digital system that we've had good luck with so far, that the signal strength has been very good. There's no dead spots. The technology's changed dramatically, so there's a lot of benefits to the new system. But, right now we're looking at leasing a radio system, and then there would, initially we buy the equipment the first year. That's why you have a figure like this for the first year, and then after that it's substantially less. But the first year, we'd purchase all the radios at a reduced cost, and then we would pay a leasing fee each year after that. We would use the company that we would lease with. We'd use their infrastructure, and it's a good quality radio, Motorola radios, and it's we've seen good luck with it, and other municipalities use it, and they have a good customer base. So so far my investigation has been positive. So that would be my recommendation, that we move forward with the $100,000 for a lease for the first year, and then recurring lease fees after that.
Okay, any questions under section 23?
Just quickly, is this go out to bid, or you mentioned?
They're on the state bidders list, so what we would do is, there's not very many. I think this is the only company that actually has this infrastructure. So and they're on the state bidders list. So the state already has negotiated some pricing with them, favorable pricing. So we would be able to, leverage that state bidding list as a contractor. And based on the type of vendor they are, there's very limited vendors out there that provide the service.
Just one
John?
quick question.
Yeah.
Does it also communicate with fire and police? Or is that capability within the radio system?
You know, I'm not sure if, it depends on if they have or they're tied to their network. You know, we can communicate with other municipalities. You know, if they have it, there's a possibility of communicating with them, but not with the fire and police that I'm aware of. I have to talk to them about that.
We currently have, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
We currently
Tim.
have a pilot program with this right now. We're testing these.
Mhm.
Great.
These are all your mobile base units. Do you guys use cell phones or direct connect or anything along those lines?
Yes.
So
Yeah, so we have a Sprint right now with a direct connect, and then this radio system actually has multiple channels, so we can have, you know, people can talk in group talk, which we want people to switch over, and then there's individual frequencies they can use to talk in a large group, or they can use a direct connect function as part of this radio system as well. So it offers a lot of flexibility.
Well, the Direct Connect has a lot of those features. I use that also
Yeah.
to connect with all of my guys, either my maintenance or custodial staff. So I'm just wondering if this is something that's needed, or if it's going to be outdated, you know, over time.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions on the 23? Okay, do you have any other second?
I do one more, and then I'm done.
Okay. Which
The
is
next one is item 24.
24?
Station
okay.
1 repair. Save the best for the last. So, Station 1 repair. Station 1 is the building next door. It was built in 1894, an old generating station. As you can see, it's the roof's in tough shape, the exterior of the building's in tough shape. We've had a architectural firm perform a building evaluation of the building and make some recommendations on what we could do with the building. To maintain the structure from further deterioration, they recommended that we do the roof over and the exterior masonry and windows. And then we could figure out the best use for the inside of the building, and there's a cost associated with that as well. So this budget item is a multi-year project, but it's to start the exterior work of the building. So in fiscal year 2014, we would start the masonry work, and then in fiscal year 2015, we would do some windows and the roof. Overall, we're looking at, for the exterior, over a period of 2 years, it was it's a little bit over $1 million. 1.15 for the exterior. And then, then there was additional cost for doing the interior, but this is to at least maintain the building so it doesn't further deteriorate.
Okay, questions on 24, Dave?
I do have a question. So the town has just gone through a 5-year process on what to do with the library. This is reminiscent of that, another grand old building. But here, we don't really have a use, right, picked out for the Station 1?
We would use it for storage as well. Right now, we're proposing storage for the building, maintain the exterior of the building, the character of the building, the historical significance of the exterior of the building, and then the best fit for RMLD would be to use it for storage inside.
And was it 1.1 million to do roof, windows, and pointing? Was that what you said?
Yes.
And then that doesn't do anything to the inside?
No, the inside. And by the way, I have a disc for you of the presentation, so I can give you that after the meeting.
I would like to learn more about this
Yes.
because, it's like the library. It's just a beautiful old building. You could think of lots of uses, getting the community more involved in proposing things for it, getting students in here to learn about energy, beyond storage. I would like to see that process happen first, where we decide on a use with considerable community input, and then, except for emergency patching, then you spend your 7 figures on this type of extensive renovation. It's a large sum of money, and when it doesn't even do the inside. So, with that said, all in favor of preserving it and using it. It's a gorgeous building, but I think we should know what we want to do with it, because that could in turn influence even with the exterior, what happens, So, do we even have a process in place for deciding what to do with the building at this point?
I just want to clarify one thing. I just misspoke too about the figures. When I looked at this quickly, it's 1.5 for the exterior in total, and it's 1.1 for the inside if we do the rehab it for storage, and if we were to do the inside for to be occupied space would be $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So the overall cost, total cost, is 2.65 for storage space and 3.5 for occupied space. That's in the presentation that I'll give you.
And I mean, when the roof is done, does that in turn influence whether you can put PV on the roof, or can you put PV on no matter what you do? Or would we not do that because it's...
I would recommend that we
do
put the
that.
PV on the covered storage building that we're proposing. That's a 80 by 120-foot square area that we put that on that building, not on this one because of the historic nature and the slate roof.
So not to belabor this, but is there a process in motion for deciding on the use of Station 1 right now? I mean, it's a great, we talked earlier about subcommittees and having meetings with, town halls and...
Well, I mean, I would say we come before the board to present our plan, and it gets approved with the understanding that, if we agree that the exterior of the building has to be preserved, that's what we're proposing. If the board was to agree that the exterior has to be preserved, that you want to maintain the building, then we would move forward. The use of the space internally could be discussed at a later date. So really, you're making the decision: do you want to maintain the exterior of the building,
Right.
or do you not want to maintain the building?
So is it deteriorating, or is it just sort of...
It has deteriorated.
What's happening right now on an ongoing basis with...
All due respect, I think that's better left for your board meeting at the end of the month.
Fair enough.
Once you review his,
Yeah.
okay?
Point taken, thanks.
Okay. Any further questions on 24?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Solly?
I would be anxious to hear from the CAB members on this, because if it looks too much like, hey, we're gonna do wonderful things for Reading, and we're gonna make you outside guys pay for that. So we'd like your input on that.
Well, I think preservation of the building on the exterior before it deteriorates beyond repair is a smart move. That sounds like what you guys are going to move forward with that. The bricks, pointing, masonry work, tighten up the building envelope, because it can deteriorate pretty fast. I've seen that happen with buildings, being a facilities guy. So I think that's a good idea. My question on your bidding process on anything over 100,000, I'm sure you guys go DCAM certification. Goes that?
Yes.
Okay, so, no, I think that's a good idea. As far as the interior, I mean, if you're using it for storage is one thing. Now, if you guys are building it up to lease it out as office space, that's something totally different, But I can understand the need for storage, definitely.
Dave?
Yeah, I think that, the preservation of old buildings, I think, is a great thing to do. And if you're gonna preserve if the town of Reading wants to preserve the building, then that's something they should really consider. Now, what you do with the building, if it's gonna be storage or used for public presentations or public learning, I think that yet remains to be seen. But I think I think the focus is do the right thing for Reading, and because it's in Reading, okay? And I think it's just a possibility that it's just good overall, so.
Tony?
What's the cost of removing the building and putting up a new structure? Is that significantly more expensive than renovating an older building?
I don't know, I'd have to get back to you.
Yeah.
We didn't, I don't remember if we evaluated, I don't think we did evaluate the cost of demolishing the building and building a new one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, any further questions on this particular item? I think, Bob, your point is well taken, but I think it would be better if at our next regular meeting, CAB meeting, if we had a discussion on this, maybe have Dave come in and give us a full presentation. We can then make a decision based on Dave's presentation, and then, make a recommendation to the Board of Light Commissioners. I think to do it here tonight in a condensed version.
I'm sure we'd appreciate your
difficult.
input.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
John.
Okay.
And I'll coordinate with Kathleen possibly on when I could
Yes.
attend your next meeting or when it would
Well,
be
we're gonna,
convenient.
before we adjourn our portion of this meeting to turn it over to the commissioners, that's one of our final agenda items to dispose of here tonight, is to set our next regular board meeting.
Okay, and I'll also get you each a copy of the evaluation of the building and the recommendations that were made of
Okay.
the restoration, so you'll each have it in advance of the meeting.
I do have just one comment, and correct me if I'm right or wrong, but I believe that building is currently on the National Register of
Yes.
Historic Places, so you couldn't demolish
Okay,
it.
well, that one.
That answers that question.
Yeah.
Historical Commission now.
Big Ape.
Okay, is there any other sections that we've missed on this? All right. Do you have any other? Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much.
All right. At this point, we have just two other agenda items before I call for an adjournment on the CAB portion. I am going to need a motion read on the total line item for this capital, so we can move that vote to the Board of Light Commissioners.
I'll take that. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Citizens Advisory Board recommend to the RMLD Board of Commissioners Draft 1 of the FY14 capital budget dated March 29, 2013, in the amount of $5,952,008 as presented. Any significant changes are to be submitted to the CAB for review and recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Hooper, seconded by Mr. Nelson. Any further discussion from the CAB? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? None. Vote is 4-0 in favor. That figure will be moved to the Board of Light Commissioners. The only two other items I have at this point is scheduling of a meeting for May. Again, if we continue with our Wednesday, May is a 5 Wednesday month, and I presume the Board of Light Commissioners will probably meet on the 22nd,
That's right, 29.
29th, okay. Any preference to what you gentlemen would like for a May meeting?
It should be before the commissioners meet, shouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean,
So it's-
primarily, our
yeah.
meeting is gonna be centered around Dave's
Right.
presentation of Station 1, but any other business that we need to conduct. If you stick with Wednesdays, you have the 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd.
I would either go the 15th or the
15th, I
20th.
would say.
15th,
Yeah.
okay? Tony,
That'll be fine.
all right. May 15th, Kathleen, for our next
7? 6:30?
6:30.
Okay.
And it would be here. Okay, we've disposed of the vote, we've disposed of the next meeting. I will entertain one other motion if there's nothing else.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn made by Mr. Hooper, seconded by Mr. Nelson. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed, 4-0. At this point, the CAB is in adjournment. I will turn the gavel over to the Chairman of the Board of Light Commissioners to
Thank you.
continue your agenda.
And we'll return to the regular session. Discuss two items that are on the agenda.
This one, Mr. Chairman, I'm frail glad he wants to go home.
Good seeing you, Bob. The first item is the discussion of the Middleton overpayment, which Kevin, I think you made us aware of. Yes, please.
I was in contact with the Middleton General Manager, Mike Kelly, about an overpayment that had been occurring since July of 2007. The invoices received were for supply of power to 2 homes on the border of Middleton and North Reading. Supply of power, the power to the 2 homes was being fed by the municipality of Middleton. Bills, the invoices that we had initially been receiving for some time, but in the range of somewhere between $200 and $300 a month. In 2007, a new billing system was installed in Middleton. Somewhere along the way, the invoices started to climb from 200 to 400 to 600, et cetera, exponentially. Last invoice paid was for $12,000. The amount owed to the RMLD is in excess of $330,000, of which Middleton would like to provide a check to us for $130,000 within this year to clear up 2012, and then have a payment plan for the remaining balance. We have yet to discuss the interest piece on this, but it is in motion.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, thoughts? The audience care to address? Any comments from the audience? Yes, Mr. Vaness.
Just a question.
Jim, come up to the microphone.
Oh, would you come up to the microphone, please, so everyone can hear you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I assume this was, these invoices were approved by the board during your usual reviews? And were there any questions in the last 5 years about any of these invoices in terms of the relevancy?
No, the board wouldn't know who was being served on the invoices.
The board approves invoices and approves the payables.
Correct.
So the board's been paying these bills. This is quite interesting. This is similar to the issue of, I think it was $1 million that the board had been approving. And have we ever recouped any money on that $1 million that was overpaid?
What we've recouped on that, we had legal counsel provide for us a means to recoup $198,000. To date, I know that we've recouped $136,000. I think there's still $60,000 that has not been claimed as expenses by the RMLD, which is something I haven't had a chance to look into.
So roughly of that $1 million, we're out $800,000, which was approved by the review of the invoices that the board had been making monthly and annually. And now we've got another $300,000 that's being approved by the board with Middleton that has been exponentially, based on what you said, Mr. Sullivan, has been exponentially increasing. So I guess the question to the chairman of the board is, what processes will the board be putting in place to preclude having these overpayment situations happen in the future?
I think there's perhaps 2 processes. One is that we're assured as a board that the internal operation of the RMLD walks through all the invoices before they ever get to us. They go through multiple sessions. They're looked at by numerous people, and we trust the internal people to do the right job. And if there is new systems that are put in place, new software systems or new billing systems, I have never seen one that's gone in place that hasn't had a mistake or some issue associated with it that is extended over some period of time to the tune of millions of dollars inside of corporations. And so mistakes were made. We'll try to rectify those mistakes, and we'll work with the general manager to try and find mechanisms, and I think you have a solution set for the payment that we'd like to hear about.
In addition,
Well, I understand the payment, and I think it's honorable that Middleton is coming forward and working on a payment plan, and I understand the budgeting process, so it may be difficult to try and take care of everything all in 1 year. But what I'm concerned about is there is a breakdown. There is, without a question, a fundamental breakdown in the accounts payable process that's going on here within the department. This is 2 instances that have happened, and I understand new systems come in and all the rest of it, but that should be a warning signal for the people that are reviewing these invoices. So I guess, Mr. Chairman, what I'm interested in is what specific actions is the board going to take to ensure that these situations don't happen again? The department is out right now over $1 million that has been funded and had to be paid for by the rest of the ratepayers in the system. I mean, our bills went up because that's an expense that is part of the process.
Well, in the first place, we agree with you that there is a breakdown in the system. That's not an issue whatsoever.
I understand.
It does take time to rectify the situation, find out through a root cause analysis what the problem is and how this ever happened, and we're going to address that. We're not addressing it tonight because we've just found out about it literally this last week.
I understand, but we've also had the $1 million one that's been out there too.
True.
So I guess the only question I have is that in place now? Is there a root cause analysis going on? Or is it going to happen in the future?
Well, we're talking 2 different situations, as I recall.
That we're aware of.
So was a root cause analysis done on the $1 million piece to, it was NSTAR, I believe?
I can never get it straight between NSTAR and the National Grid. I never know.
Exactly. It was NSTAR, so thank you.
But technically, there was not a root cause analysis done. Fine, not technically. But what had happened there was, the RMLD had radio lines, radio transmission lines that were fed from NSTAR over to Station 4 here. And those lines in 2002 became loop conductor lines. Now they're entitled as PTF, Pool Transmission Facilities. We continue to pay as if they were radio lines. It wasn't picked up by Energy Services, whomever else was involved in the validation of the process. And it continued for 9 years. And then it was noticed in 2011 that there was an overpayment that occurred, and discussion ensued with NSTAR, and NSTAR had something in their contract that indicated we could only get paid 18 months, retrospectively speaking. So there was a loss there.
Mr. Chairman, you would, as part of this root cause analysis, which I assume is going to take place, it would fundamentally seem that these routine payments that happen every single month, or maybe there are some that happen every quarter, that those should get a periodic review to ensure the validity of those payments, whether it's by the board person that's approving the payables that you go through every month, or whether it's the department people that are approving those on your behalf and sending that information to you, that type of a review should be something that's it's systemic. It's in the system. It's ingrained in the process.
I don't disagree with you.
So that's my only point.
I completely agree.
Thank you,
It needs
Mr.
to be addressed. Thank you.
Is there, just one comment on this? We talked earlier about subcommittees. I mean, we could use the expertise and the extra eyeballs and the community watchdogs, in-house, looking at some of these things. If we're relying on somebody like me on a Saturday signing an invoice, that's pretty scary. Anyway, it would be great to have Mr. Van Magnus involved in such a
Certainly,
advisory.
if you've got some ideas and
Yeah.
thoughts on how we can address this, we'd really welcome those. I mean, we try, obviously, I think everybody here is trying their best to do it, and when things slip through the system, there's no excuse, but, we're all human. You gotta try to do better tomorrow and go forward, and I completely agree with you.
And I'm not trying to, play Monday morning quarterback on this one, but it's a couple of times that this has happened, so it says something that needs to have some attention for the board.
Great.
Mr. Chair, one of the first things we'll do is we'll have Melanson Heath, our auditor, provide an audit as to this process.
Great. I think that's
Okay.
a great idea. Okay, if we're finished with that, we'd like to move on to the next agenda item.
The next item I actually put on when I was chair. I have some concerns that I've raised about the general manager rotation. First off, I don't believe that we have fully defined this. I don't believe it's fully defined as to what the rotation is going to be, how it's going to work, what time period it's going to be. We had discussion that lasted maybe 15 minutes at one of our previous meetings. And I have some really concerns about how this is going to work, how it's going to go forward. I was going to request that we actually delay, we have an effective date of April the 16th. I was going to request that we delay that at this point. We defer that until we actually can get to our the meeting we have at the end of April, so we can fully discuss how this is going to work. In terms of that at this point, I don't really feel that we fully have thought this out completely at this point, and that we need to, one of the other things, quite truthfully, is we have affected the search process with what we did. We have adversely affected the search process. I think that we need to really kind of hold off on that April 16th date. Let's put that off at this point and go forward and have a full discussion at the end of April on the meeting, now that we have, different members. I'm a little bit sorry that Mrs. Soley did not stay for this, quite truthfully, but that's my feeling at this point, so.
As long as we're talking about feelings, my sense is that I don't agree with Mr. Pacino, Commissioner Pacino, on this issue. We've talked about different methodologies for handling the interim general manager position. And we've talked about them in different meetings. We can go back to the minutes of those meetings and resurrect them if needed. And there's enough of issues here to go around for everyone, including former general manager in terms of grooming the right individual or someone to step into that particular post. We've talked about that in other meetings. We've talked about shared positions. We've talked about many different alternatives for this. So I think this is a little too late to readdress this item. And of course, the hope is here that the general manager search committee and the search that's going on. And by the way, we also talked about using executive search at the very beginning of this process instead of the much more limited search that would be a much more regional town by town type of search. Because this is exactly what happens when you're searching for an individual that you want to come in at a very senior level into the organization. It takes a long time. It can take up to a year, sometimes longer, to get the right individual. And especially in the Northeast with our high housing costs and everything else that's going on within the department. So I don't feel that the process has been compromised whatsoever. I think that we've got good people in the RMLD, that this could serve as a good learning role for them, and a good role in the sense of seeing what they can do when in a position to run the RMLD effectively. I think Kevin's done an excellent job so far. I think that we need to also provide rotation so that other people may also try that position out until we find a general manager that is appropriate. And it's very possible, certainly within the realm of a possibility, that the people that we're trying out become the general manager. I think there are good people, and I think they can grow into the position. That's my opinion. Any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have a letter for you that I misaddressed to Mr. Pacino. Congratulations on your recognition.
Thank you, Peter.
This seems to be the hot topic in Reading these days, by the way. General manager, interim general manager issue, at least people I talked to. So this is a letter to the Light Board to bring to the Board's attention my concern about the validity of the votes taken by the Light Board on March 27th, 2013 related to the interim general manager. On February 20th, 2013, 3 members of the Light Board met and discussed the appointment of an interim general manager of the Light Department until such time as a permanent replacement to the general manager, Vinnie Cameron, can be appointed. Mr. Soley made a motion that the RMLD Board of Commissioners, pursuant to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 56, accept the troika of Bob Fournier, Jane Parenteau, and Kevin Sullivan to the position of interim general manager. The motion was defeated by a vote of 1-2-0 Ms. West then made a motion that the RMLD Board of Commissioners, pursuant to Commonwealth of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 56, appoint Kevin Sullivan to the position of interim general manager, and that motion was approved by a vote of 3-0-0. On March 27th, at the end of the meeting, the RMLB entered into a discussion about the interim general manager position, even though that item was not on the agenda. With little debate, the RMLB considered a motion by Ms. Snyder that the RMLD Board of Commissioners, pursuant to Commonwealth of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 164, Section 56, appoint senior staff on a rotating basis to the position of the interim general manager, with Mr. Sullivan and Ms. Parento in these roles, and that Ms. Parento be appointed for the 3-month period starting April 1st to May 1st. The motion was approved by a vote of 3-0-1. The motion was amended to provide actually an April 15th, or somebody said 16th start date. There are two concerns with the process, and I want to emphasize that my concern here is with the process, not the result. The result is completely up to the light board. And I have consulted town council because I was concerned about the process. I believe that the March 27th motion on this matter was null and void. The motion on March 27th was virtually the same as the motion made on February 20th that failed. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the action on March 27th would be considered a reconsideration. There was no motion to reconsider. A motion to reconsider must be made by someone on the prevailing side of the initial vote, which would have been Mr. Pacino and Ms. West, and the motion to reconsider takes a 2/3 vote. So I think there's a parliamentary flaw in taking that action. But even of greater concern is that your action, I believe, was in violation of Section 3.5 of the Reading Home Rule Charter. The third paragraph of that charter, and that's the section that deals with the Reading Municipal Light Department, reads, "The Municipal Light Board shall hire the general manager of the Reading Municipal Light Department and set his compensation. The general manager shall serve at the pleasure of the board and may be removed by vote of majority of the entire board after notice and hearing." And that's my emphasis on the after notice and hearing. There was no evidence of any notice or any hearing. The appointment of the interim general manager on February 20th was done under the section of the Mass General Law that addresses the appointment of general managers. There's no separate section for the appointment of interim general managers. So in effect, on February 20th, you appointed Mr. Sullivan as a general manager, and so your actions on March 27th were to remove him, and you can only remove him by notice and by hearing. Again, I want to stress that my concern is not the end result, but is the process that's used. And what I would ask is that the RMLD, the Reading Municipal Light Board, acknowledge that their decision on March 27th is not legal, and the action of March 27th be declared by the board to be void. If you choose to rotate the interim general manager position, then I request that you do so after notice to the existing general manager and a hearing on his removal from that position. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Town Manager, is that what we call you, Mr. Hackenblick?
My hearing is not great, by the way, so if you can speak up, I appreciate it.
Is this the first that the board has heard of your concerns and seen this in writing?
Yes.
Okay. So it's sort of hard to know, I mean, there's a lot hinging here on this definition of, it was a general manager here for how many years that Mr. Cameron was in? How many years was he general manager?
10 years?
2,000 years, something like that.
11 years, and, I mean, obviously, there's a search for a general manager, and what's been discussed is for somebody to hold the spot. So I take your point about this distinction, I mean, about that, okay, the language doesn't address an interim general manager, but I think the spirit of this was that I wasn't here for this. This seems like a bit of a technicality that you're hinging this on, that there's not an interim general manager defined, therefore that can't be done by the board. And I don't know if another lawyer would disagree with you, but I think that would be something that we'd want to look into.
Well, and I want to make very clear, I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I have no aspirations to be a lawyer. No offense to anybody if you're a lawyer.
It's like a lawyerly letter, so.
Well, I did review it with town council because I wasn't sure, frankly. I mean, I'm reading what's sort of the plain language to me,
Right.
but, maybe there's something there in law. And the reason you haven't heard about it before is I just talked with town council yesterday about it. This has obviously been, an emerging situation. But town council's opinion is that What you have done, he's actually reviewed the letter. What you've done is in violation of the charter, probably in violation of Robert's Rules of Order. It's a charter that I'm honestly most concerned about. I spent 26 years sort of administering and trying to advocate and protect the charter. And I think it's very clear to me that this is a violation of the Reading Home Rule Charter. But I would suggest certainly that you not take my word for it or town council's word for it, because town council is not counsel to the light board. But I would suggest that you talk with your own counsel, and I can't imagine that they wouldn't agree with that conclusion.
I think that's exactly what we're going to need to do. We're going to have to talk to our own counsel, find counsel, and review this, because I would not interpret it the way that town council attorney has interpreted it. There were two very different types of scenarios in terms of presentation. And I also believe if we go back and examine the minutes of those meetings, we'll find that interim general manager was the term that was used in every single discussion. So
there's no
it wasn't
question,
general
but
manager.
the state law does not provide for an interim general manager. It provides for a general manager. And I believe the minutes show that your intent was that the interim general manager be appointed until a general manager is
But
selected.
following the technical spirit of your comments, there is no general manager right now, because we didn't appoint one.
Yes, you did.
Correct.
You absolutely did.
There is not, nobody's,
Under your motion, it was done under the article and section that is the appointment of a general manager. That's a direct quote out of the motions that were made by the light board. You did appoint a general manager.
We will have to go back and retain our own counsel, and, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, John.
You can finish, but I do have a comment.
Yes. We will retain counsel to reexamine, obviously, counsel work with each other all the time, and so we will reexamine this to try to understand and come to some kind of conclusion with it.
I think it's important probably for that process to be somewhat expeditious if you are removing the
If I
interim
may
general
ask,
manager
how-
and replacing him.
When was this brought to your attention?
You know, I had heard a little bit about it, and I actually had gotten a call probably last Thursday or Friday. It's been within the last 5 or 6 days. I mean, I haven't been looking at it a long time.
Because we've appointed Kevin when? When were you?
February 20th.
February 20th, right?
Right.
So it's been quite a while. that
Well,
he's been in this.
that-
And
that-
now recently it's
That
come to
hasn't been the
attention.
precipitating issue. I didn't see anything in reading through the minutes, and that's my sole source, is reading through the minutes, Robert's Rules of Order, and the law, and the charter. So I haven't done anything beyond that, but I didn't see anything on the February 20th in terms of appointing the interim general manager. I think what precipitates the issue is the March 27th actions. And that's where you, in effect, removed the general manager and appointed somebody else the general manager effective April 15th or 16th. I thought it was 15th, but I'm not positive.
We'll retain counsel to test that. And I think the other thing we need to understand is what the town of Reading has interpretation with the municipal light board, because they
I'm sorry,
really-
say-
municipal light board is a separate entity from the town of Reading. So the question becomes, what is the effect of the town of Reading making judgments on the municipal light board when we're trying to follow the letter of the law and we retain counsel to see whether we have?
I think it's a very good question. You actually are subject to the Reading Home Rule Charter. That's what establishes the Reading Municipal Light Department and the Light Board, in addition to the special statute that was passed back in 18 whatever. So you are governed by the charter of the town of Reading. We actually had a long debate on that issue after your previous general manager left and before Mr. Cameron was appointed, in terms of the Reading Home Rule Charter provisions on the light board. So these provisions are, relatively new. They're certainly newer than the Reading Home Rule Charter, which is 26, 27 years old. What is my role? I don't have authority over the light board. You're absolutely right in that. It operates as an independent department, and the town manager does not have responsibility over the light board or light department. My concern is that, as I said, I'm the guardian of parts of the charter where I have responsibility. I view the charter as being our constitution, basically. And if I see something in any department, whether it's one that's responsible to me or not, I feel it's important for me to bring it to the attention of those who can deal with it. The light board itself ultimately is the body that has to do that, or any resident, I guess, can go to court and claim a violation of the charter and deal with it that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly not my intent.
Well, it's unfortunate that we have to go through this
Yeah.
additional expense, especially since if we find a general manager tomorrow who accepts the position, then what was the whole point of the effort?
Yep.
Mr. Hackenblack, what would you suggest at this point, other than getting more lawyers involved and having it be a long, dragged-out process? I mean, is there a fix tonight that
Well,
you would propose? Or?
I think the fix, if you, and I
I'm
really
not saying
don't
there's a
want
problem,
to,
I'm just saying if there was a way to, if there's,
I don't want to get involved in the discussion as to whether or not you should rotate the general manager's position or any of that. That's, that's not my business.
process.
Charter doesn't deal with that, the law doesn't deal with that, that's really completely the light board's business. The process is what I'm most concerned about. And I think the cure to the process, if you intend to rotate the general manager's position, is go through a process of giving notice to your current general manager, having a hearing on removal of him as general manager, and then make whatever decision you make there and make whatever decision going forward that you make.
so.
That's the cure that I would see. I don't think you can do any of that tonight because you can't give notice tonight, obviously.
But, I mean, tonight, I'm just talking here, and maybe I shouldn't be, but extending through the April meeting so that there's then a chance to have this notice that you refer to, and then whatever happens could be done, in your view, more properly on the April 24th meeting? Or-
Well, and I think the chairman's point is to have your attorney review that, because the charter is silent on what notice for something like this would mean. You can use the town manager section if you want. The charter is very detailed on that, but the charter is silent in terms of general manager's position of the light department. So what would notice mean? More than 10 minutes, certainly. It's probably a week's notice. And hearing, you need to conduct some kind of a hearing
But I think it's very unfortunate that we are at this point in the relationship between town manager and the Reading Municipal Light Board to have to generate this type of a document. I mean, we're all trying to do the right thing in terms of taking Reading forward. We all made that pledge. We all took the oath to do exactly that, and then to deal with points which seem to be, I won't say trivial, but seem to be very nuances of what has happened. And we're getting excellent service from the people who are here, and we're all working under the best of intentions. And so following the letter of the law, it seems to be throwing a monkey wrench into our overall efforts, my opinion. I'm sorry, John, you had a comment you wanted to make?
I just, basically to follow up on what Mr. Heckenblankner mentioned towards the end about possibly holding this decision off until your regular board meeting at the end of the month. But I do want to make a reference to that March 27th meeting, and I will be right up front with everybody here. I did call the Secretary of State's office regarding the way the agenda was handled, the way the vote was taken, and you are in violation of the open meeting law.
Actually, I would probably take exception to that, I think. And I actually didn't talk to the Secretary of State's office. I talked to the Attorney General's office to confirm my thoughts on it. And I speak with some expertise in the open meeting law. I was a charter member of the Open Meeting Law Advisory Commission that advises the Attorney General on the open meeting law. And I've been working in this field for a number of years. I think there are two potential issues with the open meeting law.
Casino, a comment that he said that the actions had already had an impact on the general manager's search. Is that true, Mr. Pacino?
True, yes.
So I think what Ms. West was Mrs. West was referring to maybe had been that comment. So you just stated that the board isn't aware of anything. Well, maybe the board isn't, but maybe some people on the board are aware of something.
The operative word here is maybe, and that's conjecture. And maybe they did know of certain things, but certainly I didn't know anything, and I'm on the board, and I don't think you knew anything, correct? And I wish
wasn't on the
Bob were
board at
here
the
so he could say something, but if there's information to be had, it should be shared with the entire board. If Ms. West had information, I would have loved to have heard about it, or if Commissioner Pacino had information. As a matter of fact, not sharing it, I think, is very disturbing to me. It's part of this hidden agenda.
Personnel.
I guess, and Mr. Chairman, to continue along, I was quite concerned about the comments that Mr. Heckenbleckner brought up, and the concern that you had expressed, that it was unfortunate that this came up at such a late point in the process. And I think as a ratepayer, as part of this department, the comments that I would make would be that the entire process has been a total fumble by the RMLD board. We didn't find out that the general manager was leaving yesterday. He gave notice well over 6 months ago. So I think there's some responsibility here in terms of how the process has been handled. Whatever subcommittees that you want to have established, and believe me, I have never been a favorite of any of these subcommittees because a lot of activity is happening that's not going in front of the board all the time. There's a lot of stuff that gets discussed, and I know they're open meetings, but many people hardly ever attend them. The process, though, has been terrible. I have no idea where you are in the process, as a matter of fact, and I've looked at some of the minutes of the meetings, and whether there's a committee that's working on that now, and what the search process is. I know that the human resource manager came forward and talked about, process in the executive search and all the rest of the stuff, and the possibilities of hiring things. But when I went back, and I did get some calls on this thing, and that's why I'm here. I'm not here just because it was a fun night to be out. And to be here for Dave's, Mr. Talbot's first meeting, welcome aboard. I'm sure that the only thing I can say is Custer did wear arrow shirts too. Anyway, I think a lot of people are very concerned about what took place on the March 27th meeting and how it was handled and the vote that was taken. And that's history. It's over with. It's done. And I know the three individuals that were talked about back in, I think it was February, but I might have missed it, when Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Parento, and Mr. Fournier were talked about from a rotating standpoint. And they're all fine people. No, and this is not an individual. This is not a discussion about anybody's capability whatsoever. But the process that's been employed by the board has been fumbled continually, in my personal opinion. Now, you heard all the points that the town manager brought up, and, it's the first time I heard all of those things, but, I think he's presented a lot of good information for the board. And one of the concerns that I have is what happens right now, because I think the date was the 16th, but whatever it is in April 15th, April 16th, or whatever it is, it's 5 or 6 days away with a holiday weekend in between.
It's the 15th.
It's the 15th.
It's the 15th. Well, there's a weekend in between, and the board isn't meeting. So you can consult with your counsel, but if the vote that was taken stands, and it's determined in the future to be in violation of whatever regulations or the Reading town charter, which you are part of, then there's been a mistake made. And Mr. Talbot made mention of how could you fix that? Well, I don't know. Maybe you should be considering a vote tonight to at least delay the effectivity date of that decision so that it isn't the 16th or the 15th, I guess, And you could maybe do that tonight to at least delay that pending the information from town council, or from your council, because you don't want to create any more problems. I don't think you do. None of us want any more problems. So maybe you could consider doing that, and then maybe setting a date for a meeting in a week. You know, you giving due notice and getting your posting. You could have a meeting next week after you have the input from your council, and then you can decide how to carry forward on this thing. I don't think you want to wait until the end of April, because certain events may have already started to take place, and you don't want to muddy up the water anymore. So it's just a suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
And I hope you take it in the spirit in which I made that
I do.
suggestion.
And I have two comments back to
Yep.
this. And in the first place is, I 100% agree that the process has been fumbled. Not once, but multiple times. And it started with our former general manager. And I've thought long and hard about this. Someone should have been groomed at the very beginning. We knew about it for a long time. Didn't happen. Board should have absolutely put in place something that forced the general manager to groom someone. Didn't happen. I wasn't there then, by the way. I just came on. I was this poor fellow right here trying to learn what all the acronyms meant. Didn't happen. Process went to, let's find somebody in the local community. One individual did come forward. We thought it was going to be there. Didn't happen. He rescinded it, backed out of the engagement the night before. What were the reasons for that? I don't know what the reasons for that were, but whether we should have had two individuals perhaps. And by the way, the people who were on the committee for looking into that and driving that forward, one of them's here today. And so the question of whether it was handled correctly or incorrectly, in my opinion, was not enough effort went into it. I 100% agree with you. I suggested early on, as I mentioned here tonight, that we hire a professional recruiter, to the point of where I even provided names of professional recruiters for the utility industry, so that someone could be contacted and maybe bring someone in from outside around the country. That was ignored, basically, because we felt, or the rest of the board felt, that we could find someone locally to fill that task. I know how hard it is to fill a senior position, and it takes just a long, long time. We then came to the point of, let's go through a rotation or maybe even a interim general manager spot, so that people do get that learning experience. And that was discussed in the meeting. And although Ms. West may think that we didn't discuss it enough, others on the board felt it was discussed appropriately, and certain members of the board disagreed with it. No problem. We all disagree with things in our life, but when a vote is taken and we don't like the vote, we still go on with our lives. The sun still rises tomorrow and we go to work. And the thing I'd really like to ask everyone is, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of in terms of a rotation process that helps people in the organization see whether they're good people or not good people in terms of running the organization? So there's something basically wrong with not rotating people through this position. And if it's Robert's Rules of Order, I understand, we have to go back and look at that. But to bring in town council and spend the town's money and force us basically to spend RMLD money, which is the ratepayer. I'm a ratepayer too, by the way, right?
I would expect you would be.
I certainly hope so. And I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. But it just seems, again, wrong. And so because someone didn't like the vote, or certain individuals didn't like the vote, we are going through this catharsis process, and I return to, what is the issue? We're trying to find the right individual to fill into it. Process was bungled. Completely agree.
And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate all your comments and understand them fully. I think some of the things that, when we look back and maybe do a post-mortem on this whole process, which I think the board probably will want to do, is that in the future there should be an assistant general manager or whatever, okay?
Absolutely.
The town has an assistant town manager who has groomed and actually moved up by virtue of a big search, moved up into the town manager's position with Peter leaving. But you need to do that process early, a long time ago. You don't, it's not a process that starts, on a rush basis. So that's something I would encourage the board to do, to actually have a person that is starting to fill in. Who knows, someone could get hit by a bus, there could be an accident, somebody has a health issue.
Are you
and you need
interested?
somebody, excuse me?
Are you interested?
I'm retired, but if I wasn't, I'd certainly probably would apply.
He's driving the bus.
Right. Watch out. I think there has been some breakdown in the process. Now, the people that have been looked at in this job, for the rotation, are fine people. But I think you have to start to peel back that onion a little bit and think about how is this perceived by the employees? They've got a lot of good employees in this department. It's great. It's a crown jewel for not only Reading, but the other 3 communities that participate with this. But how do the employees start to deal with this? Because they're in now a process of change. The first part of the process of change was when Vin made the announcement that he was leaving. So for 6 months, everybody was in a process of who's going to replace him? What are they doing? What's the search? Who's the candidates? What's the names? That starts to impact morale, and it starts to impact productivity. Then Mr. Sullivan is appointed to cover while Vin's on vacation, and then he's subsequently appointed to fill as the interim general manager, or whatever definition you want to put on it, but he's been given the mantle of authority to deal with this department for the board. Then, after he's been on that job for about 6 weeks, on another motion that happens at the end of a meeting, very late in the process, a motion comes forward that says, we're going to start to put other people in from a training perspective. The board doing that is behind the 8 ball. Again, it's another fumble, because you don't start training people on the job while you're trying to find another search person. You should have been doing that for months ago.
Excuse me, if I may interrupt just for a second. That's what Kevin was doing. He was learning the general manager position on the job without a general manager to guide him. So why is that different than having someone else being rotated in? Also, you talk about the employees. What's the impact on employees? I completely agree. I think if employees can see a path to management and advancement in their career path, that's fantastic, no matter who they are. And I want to pose a question to you. What's more important for Reading RMLD? Is it the purchase of power, or is it the distribution of power? Which is more important?
I don't think you can qualify either of those two
I
as
completely
being most
agree.
important.
Well,
Because they're
that's
both
the point.
equally important.
They're equally important,
Right.
right? So it's equally important then, in terms of the value of the individuals who perform those functions, to see a role for advancement perhaps in their organization. Should our former general manager have groomed individuals, not just one, but maybe more, for replacement? I completely agree. I mean, all my clients do it. I've got a lot of clients. They all do it because it's the first tenet of management is replace yourself.
Right.
That was a huge failure. And then we've sort of bungled down the road and kicked the can down the road here, and now everybody's pointing fingers at each other. I'm just suggesting, let's stop pointing the fingers at each other and try and work our way out of this so that we get everything on a smooth.
And that was my intent, and that's why I came to you tonight and made that point to you, that maybe instead of, we're not here to be in open combat. We got fine people here. The process has been all screwed up. So how do we get this back on the right track? From my perspective, it says we need a process timeout. You can't start to implement things that may have questionable validity where you are right now. Now, you have I think you have a couple of options. One, you can have another meeting on the 15th, the day that is supposed to be implemented, and
It's a holiday.
oh, it's a holiday. All right, I haven't got a calendar in front of me. Okay,
In
then you don't have enough.
Massachusetts.
You don't have enough time. So the point would be, maybe you need to set that date out of the rotation change to a point a little bit further out to give yourself some soak time, get your appropriate guidance, which you could probably do tonight. And then you need to set up another meeting to come back with that information and then decide how you're going to move forward.
Thank you for your suggestions. We'll take those under advisement.
That's all, and I thank
feel
you for
that
the
there's
opportunity.
There's been another element that's been served here tonight, which sort of caught us by surprise, to be honest, that we certainly didn't expect this to be coming in. And yet it falls within that same plane of, let's have a surprise, whether it's an attorney coming in and telling us what our rights are, or it's someone coming in and giving us another piece of paper to say, there's some issue with how you did this, and in our opinion, and town's opinion, or council opinion, it was incorrect. And now we're forced to find another opinion to try and counter that, or if not countered it, deal with the situation. And we're very happy to do that. I am not going to do that tonight. I would like to request one thing. Beth, could you please give us an update on the search for the general manager? Yeah. Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, come on up.
Would you please come up?
To the microphone.
And comment?
I
And
think
would you
it-
also address
I think it's
the
important.
comments that have been made here about the impact of the sort of rolling, whatever it is, kind of internally, and what possible effect that might have, not on bringing somebody in, but we're talking historically, that apparently has happened, which I'm unaware of.
Yes, the process right now, I'm trying to set up a general manager's search meeting for next week to review the resumes that will be submitted to us by the executive search firm. Because of tonight's meeting and not knowing who was going to be in what position, I didn't make contact with everybody. So now that I know that you're on the committee, it's a little easier. So next Thursday, we anticipate getting the presentation of the resumes of the candidates that were interviewed by the search firm. Don't know who they are.
You know how many there are?
No, I have not talked to him. He's doing his interviews this week.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
As far as the other issue, I did get a call from the search firm that a candidate did withdraw after hearing what was going on here with the board's decisions, and I don't know anything more after that.
And do you have any idea of how that information got to that particular individual?
This is a very small world in the municipal utility business, and phones ring on a daily basis in the business. And that's my
Assumption. Okay, thank you.
A parting thought from the new guy. Take it for where it comes. There seems like there's three possible scenarios here. One is that the one that Mr. Heckenbleckner has suggested is right, that this was not done properly. Another is that the initial appointment wasn't done properly, so we don't have any general manager or interim general manager right now because the language interim general manager was used, and that doesn't exist. So that actually we have no general manager right now. According to this, another technical reading, another lawyer could come out saying that. And a third would say that acting tonight to extend something would be wrong for some reason. So we could see how lawyers could see things 3 or 4 different ways. So whereas a few minutes ago I was thinking, well, why not just extend? And part of me thinks that's going to be problematic for some other reason that we don't see. Yeah, that's all. It's hard to see that there's a quick fix. But.
David, you had a comment?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Mancuso, Precinct 4. Congratulations to all of you for being elected. I am no longer envious. I am no longer envious whatsoever. Let me just say this: there was, and this is actually, I intend this as an aside from the whole conversation about what's the next step. But I think it's important, and it's something that concerned me that I heard tonight. This board, the reason. The specific comment was about trying to adhere to the letter of the law, and another comment was made about, having to spend time to dig into the details. This is a regulated entity. This is a legal entity. This is an entity that represents 29,000 people, and it's worth $96 million. Mr. Talbot made a very good point when he talks about the liabilities that this organization faces if it doesn't stick to the letter of the law, if it doesn't follow a good process and procedure. The whole point of those things, as you well know, I know each of you do, is to make sure that this kind of silliness doesn't happen. And by silliness, I mean the debate. Who's right, who's wrong, who's up, who's down. That's the stuff that hopefully, in adherence to good process, will prevent from happening. So I just want to share with you all the fact that I have a great deal of respect as a ratepayer for what you are attempting to do, and I would strongly encourage the board to spend some time with Robert's Rules, with Chapter 164, with ISO New England, with the organizations that actually make up this industry, because it is a very small industry. And there's an awful lot of smart people, not only in this building, but outside of this building, who can help amateurs like us actually get through these kinds of experiences so that we as a community don't have to experience this kind of vitriol. There's no place for it. So I just want to encourage everyone on the commission, as commissioners, to take your job very seriously, which I think you do, and to really try and embrace the notion that the rules, as annoying as they can be, are there to prevent exactly this kind of situation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, David. So we had another comment?
Hi, my name's Michael Prisco. I'm selectman over in North Reading. I apologize for not being here more often, but John does a great job. I'm the liaison from the board to the RMLD, and so I apologize for not being here sooner, but I have a few questions before I make a comment. This whole concept that you've come up with about the rotation, just make sure I understand it. Is it everybody that has submitted an application for this position? Are they all going to rotate through it? Is that your concept?
Perhaps not. There's not enough time.
Okay. So I asked this question because it makes I'm really having a hard time trying to understand how you got to the point where you made this decision, because it seems a little unfair to the other applicants that submitted for this position. If you're going to have if you're going to have 2 or 3 people that have to be internal to RMLD, to float through this as what you called it, sir, is an education, that you have an interim general manager for education so they can learn the position. I don't believe that's why you have an interim GM at all. You have an interim GM because you don't have a GM. And then now to make it as an educational position brings great concern to me, and I would say it brings great concern to my town that you take that approach. And just as a person, as an individual, I own large businesses. It would make no sense to me that you would let only a few rotate through this, get this education. How do you compete if you're one of the applicants?
Well, you don't open it up to the entire community in the first place. In any business, as you well know, you've owned businesses. You've got certain senior level individuals who you trust with the responsibility, and you choose which of those individuals you think would gain a good position and a learning experience by going through this. I don't quite understand why you would just open it up to just anyone who would wish to apply.
No, you're not understanding me. I apologize. If you have 5 applicants or 6 applicants, and the young lady here, she didn't tell us how many people submitted, but if not all of them are going to get that same opportunity to sit in that seat with the concept that you created, then isn't it an unfair advantage for anybody to compete for this job just by the way nature of the way you're handling it? Because traditionally, when you have a vacant position, traditionally you have a corporation of this size, I'll call you, okay, but a municipality of this size, you have to put an interim in to get through the process. All that makes sense to you so far?
No, it doesn't, as a matter of fact.
If you have 6 applicants, they're all supposed to be given a fair opportunity for this job. Am I correct on that?
They may not be qualified.
Okay.
Would a 1-year person be qualified as well as a 10-year person?
I'm only
someone
asking.
who's an expert on the outside, operation of the distribution system, as qualified as someone who's doing the purchasing of power. There are different levels of qualification. So of course
I don't disagree.
I would just suggest that it would be great. You're a selectman. You run businesses. We'd love the input. So why don't you tell us what your advice is from where we are now, and we can take that under.
My
advisement.
advice is this:
Yeah.
it makes no sense to why you're taking this approach, because how do you have this continuity? You're going through the budget cycle right now, and we know, Kevin, I don't want to speak for you, but I have to assume you're getting a tremendous amount of feedback from your department heads, right? Building the budgets, working on the budgets, asking questions. you're all trying to work towards finishing this process up. And then all of a sudden, you switch somebody out in April, you put someone else in there. Now, all this continuity and all this discussion and all this feedback that's going to work through one individual now goes away, you put someone else in there, the continuity's
But
gone.
just to sum up, your suggestion is there should be one interim and leave it at that.
Yeah, and then let the process compete the way it's supposed to compete.
Okay.
Because you have to, when you run a municipality, continuity is a big part of it.
Good.
And I just think you're making a grave mistake. And I do find it, Mr. Chairman, I have to say, I'm a little surprised. Have you been a chair before of a board like this? I apologize, I don't know the answer, but
No, have not.
I find the way you've reacted a little bit concerning to me. The way you reacted to the town manager in regards, he brought to you something, he highlighted something, and you seem to take offense to it. And it seemed, it
Not
kind
true at
of,
all.
well, your body language and the way you worded, and the frustration of shaking that piece of paper, I would actually suggest to you that you should be thankful that somebody brought this to your attention, that you should be thankful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the input, but I completely disagree with you, and you're welcome to your opinion, but you're wrong, in my opinion, and therefore, thank you very much. Ready to move on here. If there's no other discussion, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Are we all done with discussion? Bill?
But do you want to do anything with this at this point? I mean,
I want to talk to council.
well,
What would your argument be, Phil, for doing something now
my
and not
argument
creating
would
more
be,
problems?
to talk to council is fine, and I would agree we need to talk to council. I would prefer that we maybe push off and have another meeting. If that means we come back and meet next Wednesday, we meet next Wednesday. I'm not even sure legal counsel can get you an opinion that turn around that fast.
Out of
To
town
be quite
next
truthful,
Wednesday.
knowing legal counsels. Either we meet the 17th, the 24th, and follow the process.
Thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that if what ends up happening is that somebody voids the process, then the process is voided, but we just don't know what would happen. So
Well,
to try to fix something when we don't know.
Here's my other concern. My other concern is, we have now appointed a different person to be the acting general manager. If I were that person, I gotta be honest with you, I would have some concerns about what kind of support I'm going to get based upon this discussion tonight. I'd have some real concerns, and whether or not I'd really want to go forward with that at this point.
Do either one of,
Quite
I mean,
frankly, quite
I
frankly.
feel for you guys, sitting
Yeah.
here for all this.
Yeah.
Either of you want to say anything? I mean,
Yeah, this has been the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my career. The single hardest thing. That's what I'd like to say.
Jane, you want to say anything?
I'm happy to help the board in whatever manner they need help. I welcome the opportunity. If it's causing problems for the board, I have no problem,
And one other comment, thank you, is that I'd like to introduce Bob Fournier into this. The man has 22 years with the department,
I agree.
and he should be a part of this. If
I
there's gonna be
don't
some sort of
disagree.
rotation set up, if that's the way the board sees it, he should be a part of it.
I don't disagree at all. I think senior individuals, he falls within the senior individual category. I think we need to, I feel we do not need to make a decision tonight, because I think there's been too many things placed on the table, and I need to think through them and have a meeting perhaps within a week to try and resolve. I do feel that we need to talk to council, and so I welcome the process for us to do
Do you have a
that.
different idea, Phil?
Well, I think we need to, I'm just concerned about what's going to happen on the 15th. Should we say, let's delay that appointment for a week, and then it gives us next week to give us enough time to get a proper legal counsel?
Well, we already delayed it by 2 weeks, going to the 15th. It was originally for the 1st,
but that
and now
is-
we pushed it back again.
Mr. Hackenblecker, do you have a suggestion?
I wouldn't
Come on.
make any suggestions to the light board. I think
Well, I mean, come on, you put this on the table, I mean, you're the expert.
Well, in my letter, I made a suggestion that you basically stay everything through the process in accordance with the charter, and then, whatever you want to do is fine. My problem is the process, as I explained.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you, Peter. I think we need to move on to council and have them interpret this and see if there's any differences that they might have with the town. And I would suggest that we do meet next week, and we'll try to get this resolved before the meeting.
Let me ask, what happens on the 15th?
Moves forward exactly as planned right now.
June the 8th, because we have a Monday holiday, so I'm losing the day to post it.
Plus, the town hall is not open on Fridays.
Right, so I
So if we're
So
gonna.
we gotta post it,
Need to post it tomorrow.
I'm not here on next week, I'm back on Friday, just so you know.
We have the ability to post a meeting on a Friday if you need to.
You can make the meeting be Friday evening, I can be there, I can't be there.
Next Friday evening?
We're going away for a week on Saturday, Friday during the day.
And quite truthfully, you know, the short period, you say it's 2 weeks. In municipal periods of time, 2 weeks is a very short period, I'm sorry to say, from what I've experienced. In business, 2 weeks would be more than enough time. But in terms of government, 2 weeks is a very short time, quite truthfully.
Does anyone, a member of the board, have an issue with delaying it to it's not the 15th, it's the 23rd? 23rd.
We're already meeting on the 24th, right?
we're meeting on the 24th.
We're already done
24th.
24th.
Okay. So we'll delay it until, suggestion is to delay it until the 25th.
It being the
Discussion, getting council to rule on this from our side of the fence, and then having discussion at the meeting.
Again, what happens on the 15th?
I would suggest that we move that the transition does not occur on the 15th, that it is moved to the 24th, or excuse me, the day after the next meeting.
I agree with that. I absolutely
Is that
agree with
acceptable?
that. I'm absolutely in agreement with that, quite truthfully. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I make a suggestion? That it would start after a weekend?
On a Monday.
It's an easier transition.
Monday?
Right, on a Monday.
After a
I don't-
weekend.
Right.
Go through the AP process,
Mhm.
payroll, it's easier after the weekend.
Fine.
So we can act on the 24th.
I do want to make one comment. I guess I owe the board an apology. I guess I screwed up the search process. Being ahead of
You
that.
weren't alone.
And I've heard that, you know, it was a botched process, and quite truthfully, it has been a botched process. The candidate that we had backed out at the last minute really messed us up royally.
It did.
Messed us up royally beyond belief, and someday I will actually have a talk with him and find out what the real reasons were.
I can join you.
Yes.
Better off.
Okay. Do we need a motion to that effect?
Probably. Would you make a motion to we?
Move that we change the transfer date to,
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Move that the commission defer the transition date from April 15th to, what's the Monday after that?
29th.
April the 29th, at this, to defer that position at this point.
second.
Okay.
Discussion?
It makes a
I
lot of
think
sense
we've
to
had
do
it.
We've
that.
had enough discussion, me too.
I think we've had it.
Take a vote, everyone, in acceptance, raise your right hand. Yep. So, let me know that 3-0.
Is it the vote? No,
Yes.
3-0.
We follow the proper,
Can we all go home now?
Okay.
Move to adjourn? Move to adjourn?
Second.
Dave, second.
second.
Oh, man.